Good afternoon. Welcome to the November meeting of the WETA board. And if you would please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you, I guess we could call the roll now that we did the pledge.
There, Wonderman.
Here.
Vice Chair Boyer.
Here.
Director Alba.
Here.
Director Del Bono.
Here.
Director Hughes.
Here.
You have to keep things changing around once in a while. Welcome to the WETA's Board of Directors meeting. This monthly meeting is being conducted in person and by video conference and is being recorded. To reduce background noise, all video conference participants will be joining the meeting in listen-only mode and will be muted during the discussion. WETA welcomes comments from the public. The public comment period will be set aside after each discussion period and will be accepted in person and by video conference. Video conference participants wishing to speak are requested to please email your name and item number you'd like to comment on to boardofdirectors@watertransit.org. If you're unable to send an email, you'll be given an opportunity to speak on the items after those who signed up. So thanks all for coming today here in the virtual world, and it's been a very exciting time for our system. Had the pleasure of being part of the really incredible celebration of the EPA Clean Ports Grant to get Mission Bay done, as well as to purchase an additional 400 seat electric ferry and to support electrification of shoreline infrastructure and to support workforce development. And so that's really exciting and came on the heels of a state TIRSIP grant I believe, to provide the electrification of at Harbor Bay. So this is quite a run that the organization's been on. I would just want to congratulate all the, Seamus and Lauren and the team here in the organization who've done such an incredible job presenting the benefits and the commitment that we have as an organization to make this happen. It's not easy to do it. In order to get this done, you have to convince the likes of Nancy Pelosi, who is very much on hand and leading that celebration, and Senator Padilla and others who then have to turn around and convince, in this case, the EPA, but whatever the funding agency is, that you're worthy and that you're going to deliver on the project. So that's really important to them, is that they're not going to give out a grant and it's going to sit there and nothing's going to happen. So we know in this case that's not the case. And it's just really a heartwarming experience. And we just want to thank all of the team here, the whole organization who participated in that, or who've been involved directly or tangentially, and my fellow board members. Like that's a really big win. Those do not come easily. And in the future, I think it might get a little tougher. So let's make sure, did we cash the check? I hope. Yes. And we move on and deliver. And the Mission Bay project itself is just crucial to the future of the system. It's embedded in the strategy that we have for expanding water transit service in San Francisco Bay. And it means a lot to an area of San Francisco that really is not well transit served. It's hard, Mission Bay is amazing, but it's hard to get there. And now folks are going to be able to get there all the time by water transit in a way that's, I think, consistent with the quality of the experience you have once you get to Mission Bay and visit Chase Center or UCSF or the headquarters of Uber, Kaiser, and many others. There are a lot of people who live there. So congratulations to the team on that. It's just really a job well done. And I was very proud to be able to represent the organization on that. With that, I shall turn it over to the Vice Chair Moore.
Well, good. Thank you. Pardon me. I just want to echo, I won't be redundant in what you said, that what a tremendous year we've had. And it's so incredibly gratifying to see some of these long range visions like Mission Bay, which has been a dream of mine for a long time, and many others coming coming forward with some funding, and it couldn't have happened without having a really crystal clear plan. So thank you to all of you who worked tirelessly, the staff and the community and the stakeholders, to create those visions and those plans that could help us to bring forward then very cogent and qualified grant proposals. And thank you to everyone who's worked tirelessly to make sure that all of our representatives and regulatory bodies understand those visions and plans and the reality, as you just said, for delivering on those plans. And I know this is just the beginning. We have to actually put the stake in the ground or the water, as the case may be, and come forward and deliver. But I couldn't be prouder, and what a precipitous era we've entered into as WETA. So congratulations to all. Looking forward to really celebrating the openings. But to be able to see something as monumental and as much of a tipping point as our environmental programs and our people programs moving forward is really incredible. So couldn't be happier. What a great closeout. Not quite, but almost close out to the year. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Director Robin?
Good afternoon, everyone. I can't do anything but echo exactly what Chair Windeman and Vice Chair Moyer just shared. It's what an achievement and what a recognition of all the hard work that staff and everyone involved in these grant applications and the partnerships that are needed in order to make something like this happen at the time frame that it's done over the past few years, and especially over this past year. And so having this funding, it's fantastic. It's just, let's move forward. Let's get it done. Some very exciting times. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Devon?
Ditto, especially what you said about cashing the check. I hope.
I hope so. We'll find out later.
Yeah.
Director Du?
Thank you. Well, certainly, being the newest board member, you're setting my expectations quite high for the next several years to come. So hopefully we are able to, sustain those trends and build on that momentum. It was really exciting for me for the press conference. I got a ride over on the ferry with some of the Working Waterfront Coalition students in the first cohort. And they were just so full of excitement and, their, awe in the way that Speaker Emerita Pelosi was talking about the workforce development and how important that was. I think it really impacted them quite significantly. So it was really exciting to see that. And I was able to attend a presentation that was given to the cohort, I think it was like a week or 2 weeks ago, where they were hearing from employers like AmNav Marine and Seafarers were there. And so it was really exciting for them to see that they're already being given job opportunities. Their graduation is tomorrow night from 4 to 6 p.m. at 182 Pintado on Mare Island. And I'm told we have 100% graduation.
Oh.
And that I believe almost all of them have already received job offers.
Oh,
Well, about 15.
Comes here the need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So really exciting on all of that. And then also I wanted to thank Seamus for his support with, I was contacted by the Centers for Urban Excellence. They have received a workforce development grant for justice involved youth. And they were looking for opportunities for tours of, different facilities and things like that. And so Seamus was able to connect with them and help support their efforts. And then Healthy Vallejo was also at the presentation with the Working Waterfront Coalition. And he also has workforce development grants for justice involved youth. And so I believe they're going to be working with the Waterfront Coalition as well. So many exciting things coming forward in that space, and I'm just excited to be a part of it. Thank you.
It's amazing what we're into with that, with the Working Waterfront Coalition. It's just, and Nancy Pelosi couldn't have been more thrilled.
Yeah.
And she spent a lot of time with those folks,
She did.
taking pictures and talking,
Yeah.
like having deep conversation.
Yeah.
It was, for a long time.
It was really exciting.
And, yesterday I flew back from Florida And so I was on the plane, I watched movies and I saw a movie called Am I Okay? And it's a pretty touching movie. Have you seen them? Yeah. So it's a pretty touching movie. And when I get to 30,000 feet, I get a little emotional anyway. But the movie includes a lot of ferry stuff. And it's in Turkey. So it's in Istanbul. And they go back and forth. They're on the ferry quite a bit. And it's nice that they focus on the ferry, but the thing is belching out smoke like no tomorrow. And I don't think that the directors really thought about that or that even crossed anybody's mind when they created this movie. But we need to, we're not just expanding the system. We're embarking on a capital program that's never been done before anywhere like this. I mean, we're going to be doing things that just plain haven't been done. Certainly not in the United States, but really anywhere. And that work, so much has gone into, and thank you team for doing this to get us to this point. And there's some very thoughtful material contained here about, thinking through what does the capital campaign look like and what are the associated risks and, what's going to cost and how do we make the right kinds of decisions. So this is no small task that we're undertaking here. And the purpose of it is really very, very big. And the purpose of it will be debated in the times ahead as to whether these kind of investments make sense here and certainly in our country. And I think it's going to behoove us to really double down and make sure that we do it right and that we make the case for it over and over and over again, and eventually I think win folks over, because we don't want to see that smoke coming out of our vessels in the future. We want to end that, and I think, and I'm confident that we will, and I'm confident that many will follow us. So with that, let me turn it over to the executive director, Mr. Murphy, and tell us what you got going on.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wonderman. Thanks to the board for your comments. First, I want to introduce Hector Lopez. He's our new budget analyst. Hector is sitting in the front row here. Hector has 6 years of experience, grant compliance, and financial analysis, stress grant compliance, because we know we need a whole lot of that with all of the successes we've had on the grants front. And that kind of leads into some of the updates that I wanted to give. Interferry 2024 was just held. It was a conference in Morocco. I attended as a member of the Interferry board of directors, and it's a good group, a good opportunity to learn about some of the global trends, which is what really set us off on this decarbonization exercise in the first place. And we have some good news as far as how the rest of the ferry community around the world is moving, what direction they're moving in. We knew before we decided to pursue battery electric ferries as our solution for decarbonization that it had worked in different places in Norway and some parts of Scandinavia, and that we also knew that we were taking somewhat of a gamble, that it would work for us, that there would be funding to support what we would want to do with decarbonization using battery electric technology, and that the technical solutions would continue to evolve to allow our service to operate using that technology. But good news, more and more people are doing the same analysis, doing even more analysis than what we did, and landing on the same conclusion. There's been a debate around the industry about whether alternative fuels or battery electric solutions would win the day. And based on what we heard at Interferry, electrification is really carrying the day as far as a strategy for people exploring decarbonization of the maritime industry. BC Ferries is ahead of us, I would say. They're not in the US, so they're in North America, but not in the US. So they'll probably have their ferries launched a little bit before us. But they're pursuing battery electric, fully electric ferries in British Columbia. There's some places on the East Coast that are catching up with us, I would say, in their planning and eventual implementation. Cape May Ferries is pursuing a hybrid battery electric technology. We know what Washington State Ferries is doing because they're sort of neck and neck with us, but more and more this is happening. People are getting to the implementation phase of these projects, and they're entering the planning phase, and it's confirmation that the decision that we made is the right one in terms of going with battery electric technology. The other trend here that I think is probably going to have a lot of traction in the future is the full foil hull technology. We've had some presentations from folks who are innovating in that area. The projected benefits or promised benefits of reduced energy demands are pretty. They seem great for an agency like ours that's pursuing electrified service, because we could operate our service with even less energy than what we could with a traditional ferry, but we haven't seen these whole technologies tested and really proven out. Navier in the Bay Area is, I think, on the forefront of this. They're operating vessels that are smaller than, of course, what we would operate on our ferry system, but they've done that successfully. We've now just seen the launch of the Candela 30-passenger vessel that member Alba and Del Bono and I rode in Stockholm. That's now operating as part of a pilot project in the Stockholm region, just started operation 2 weeks ago. We have access to all of their data thanks to our relationship with the Stockholm region, and we'll see how that plays out. But we're seeing these full foil vessel technologies really start to go into the implementation phase too, and that means that we should really take a serious look at these and take advantage of any opportunities that come our way to demonstrate that technology the same way that we have, for example, with the sea change. The other trend is not so rosy, and it has to do with cost of these projects. It is just really disheartening, I would say, to see how much more expensive capital projects in general have become over the last 3 or 4 years. But especially in transportation, and then again, especially in the maritime industry. And there are some real clear reasons why. Inflationary pressures have hit these projects. Supply chain issues have hit these projects. The IIJA took transit funding in the U.S. from $12 billion to $20 billion in 1 year, from 2021, and it's maintained that level since. So there's more money out there chasing less resources, and that demand has led to really incredible cost increases. The Association for General Contractors says that 61% of projects are delayed due to lack of skilled labor. That's worse for transportation projects. Worse, it's even worse in California, where 71% of projects are delayed. 84% of projects in the pre-construction phase are at risk of exceeding their budgets. Washington, in 2021, the state transportation projects, they were averaging in 2021 6 bids per project. In 2023, they're averaging 2.5 bids. So these are not good trends, not encouraging trends for us, but they're being experienced globally. Ferry operators around the world talked about this at Interferry. They also talked about how everybody knows how much worse it is in the United States because of some of these pressures. So it's just a cautionary tale for us, and something that we need to be on the lookout for, and something that we need to take into account when we're budgeting for the work that we know we need to do moving forward. That, I think, does it for Interferry. I want to get to the rest of the updates in the executive director's report, and grants update is the next one on our list. I'm going to ask Aaron to give us a good summary of the grants that we received since our last board meeting. We heard a little bit about that from the board in your updates, but we particularly want to talk about the risks associated to any of those funds because of some of the recent events.
So just to sort of sum up, just in the last year, or less than a year, this hardworking team of people has produced over $102 million worth of grants. So to give you a quick summary, $5 million for Harbor Bay electrification from the California Energy Commission, the CEC. 3.7, and I can email this list to you if that's helpful, so you don't have to write it down. 3.75 million for the Richmond Ferry terminal charging, and for EV charging at that terminal through MTC, actually. Of course, 200 additional funding for 2 of our 3 149 vessels from a competitive FTA grant, another Harbor Bay grant to complete the Harbor Bay funding package that we just talked about from TIRCP from the state of California, the Mission Bay grant, which we all celebrated for $55 million, and we are scrambling with the EPA to get that grant executed in record time before January 1st. You know, so we think we're going to be able to do that, but there's always risk when you have what we've got going on in DC, but the goal is to get that. And we have the EPA working very, very hard, literally emailing us every 5 seconds, and we've had meetings. So, and working really closely with the port, and we're going to be working with the Working Waterfront Coalition. So there's a lot of missing pieces that have to get put together. And of course, the EPA guidelines aren't the same as the FTA guidelines. So it's just getting all of that worked out, but I think we'll be fine on that. And then what is new information as of this week, which we haven't been able to tell you about, is that our engineering team has worked really hard on a proposal to convert our whole Hydrus fleet to electric propulsion. And so we received word last week that we were going to get $14.5 million for the first Hydrus vessel from the state of California through the VW settlement money. Which if you're not familiar with that, they were doing some bad juju with their emissions. And so there we have the state has a pot of money that actually our friends over at the Air Quality Management District said, hey, you know, we know you want to do this. This would be a good fund for you to go after. So they actually took our application and moved it to this other source for us. So we just got word that we're going to get that, and they've announced a new round. So we're going to talk about applying for the next round, and we're hoping to get more and more money out of that source because there's still a lot of money there. So I mean, I think that speaks to a strategy of just kind of move and shake around the money that's still out there and try to get that stuff tied up. And it's been sort of overwhelming and everybody's very tired, but they're doing such a good job, and we're really, really excited to. And also Jen and Hector in the second week is pulling together numbers, and right now, we believe that our total discretionary and formula funding for our electrification efforts is over $238 million. So it's good. It's good stuff.
Good work together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure we thank the port for their help with the Clean Ports grant. They're the applicant for that grant, and they came to us with the idea that we could collaborate on that application, and it just worked out better than anybody expected. But they're just fantastic partners to have, and I'm sure we'll be working together with them very closely to pursue future grant opportunities, and of course to deliver the Mission Bay project. Also Working Waterfront Coalition, I'm excited about their graduating class too. I think that the grant, the fact that it includes funding for expanded workforce development, some of the reasons why these project costs have gone up so much is lack of access to skilled labor, and we're not going to solve that with one Working Waterfront Coalition graduating class, but it's a step in the right direction. So we need to make sure we're doing more of that. Moving on from grants update, MV Carl is the next vessel in the Dorado class, the third Dorado class vessel. And here it is out of the water, but I can tell you that it's in the water now. It is in the water at Dakota Creek where it gets launched, goes through sea trials. We're getting it. It's hard to say early because this vessel is late when you look at the original schedule, but it could have been much later than what when we will see it. We're seeing it earlier than we thought. So it should be here by the end of the year and hopefully in operation sometime in February. It's going to take a little bit longer to go through sea trials than the previous Dorado vessels because it's a little bit of a new class. It's for engines, and it is the first DPF equipped CARB compliant diesel vessel that's been built. So that's a big deal. When it gets here, we're going to make sure that we make a big deal out of that. It's going to be that much more energy efficient because of that. And we're excited to have it join the fleet. We're going to talk about some of the challenges that we've had maintaining the existing fleet as of late, and it'll make it clear how much we actually are excited for this vessel to be here and operating. Then I'm going to turn it to Tom to talk about emergency operations.
Oh, good.
Thank you, Seamus. Tom Hall, Director of Operations and Customer Experience. Just wanted to provide an update on 2 exercises that we participated in the month of October. There are further details in the report. The first one was participation in the annual San Francisco Fleet Week Defense Support of Civil Authorities exercise. And so for this one, we aren't always able to mobilize a vessel as a part of our Fleet Week participation, but for this one we were. And we assisted San Francisco Department of Emergency Management in a disaster service worker callback exercise. And so essentially they were exercising their ability to call back disaster service workers from the East Bay to San Francisco as would be needed in an emergency response. And so those employees were directed to report to the Oakland Ferry Terminal, where we had a vessel to take them over to Oracle Park, I believe, or Pier 48, the Pier 48 ferry dock, where they were then transported to Pier 3032 for further training. So that was a big success, thanks to Kevin Donnelly and the team at Blue Gold Fleet for making that happen. It was a good experience to be able to see how this works in real life. The second exercise we wanted to talk about was our staff functional exercise. So this is basically an all of WETA endeavor that we try to do once a year to exercise our emergency response capabilities. We did have a benefit this year of having a new emergency response and safety analyst, Cam Bachman, who was introduced at the last meeting. But he came at a time where it was important for him to be an observer for that exercise and not actually lead it, because it was already well in planning by the time he got here. So I just want to shout out Kevin Donnelly, who has taken on this role over the past couple of years in terms of keeping our emergency response training going and planning the exercise. We, for the first time, did a hybrid activation of the EOC, of the Emergency Operations Center. So we had folks that were remote, and then we activated 2 separate EOCs, one in Alameda, one in Vallejo, a little closer to what reality might be if there were an earthquake and everyone were scattered to the wind, so to speak. So we used Microsoft Teams as our new virtual EOC platform. Learned a lot. I think Cam came away with a very long list of learnings that will inform the training program that he's going to be developing for WETA staff over the next couple of months and putting into effect leading up to next year's functional training exercise. Happy to answer any questions. Exercises.
Sounds very good.
Thank you.
Lastly, on the executive director's report, we're going to talk about the website redesign. Very excited about this. Lexi and Tom have been leading this effort, and it's just a great opportunity for us to update our web presence and make it more customer friendly, so that we can use it as an enhanced customer experience enhancement and ultimately use it.
Good afternoon, directors. So as you know, we had in March came to you to award contract to redesign our website. The current website, while great, it's a little difficult to navigate. It really lacks some key language and accessibility tools. It doesn't really work well on mobile, and on the staff side, it's very cumbersome to update. So we don't do it as often as we'd like to. So we hired Exemplify. Again, they are experts in state-of-the-art transit websites. They do this a lot, and they've spent the last 7 months working with our staff to research, implement, and design a new design and new features for a greatly improved site. So I'm just going to give you guys a quick tour of some of the major highlights. Please know this is a work in progress. We are hoping to launch in the next week or so. So we're still kicking the tires and making sure all the bugs are fixed, but there are more things to improve. But the homepage starts with a big map of the system. This is an interactive map. You can click on an area to see information about a terminal, or you can click on a route to see information about that route. You can also choose your preferred route here. There are popular routes. You can pin your favorite route so that you're coming back to the homepage again and again. Your favorite route is right there. We have a trip planner that does something other than takes you to the route page. So if I wanted to go from downtown San, you can put in any address. This is not just from terminal to terminal, but just for sake of example, if I'm going from downtown San Francisco to the Oakland Ferry Terminal, It's gonna open in a system very much like. So small, so you can see it here. This is using Google mapping systems. So if I'm using this on my mobile phone, especially once I hit details, it's gonna open into my preferred mapping system. It works really well with whatever people are using. So the way this works is it's built to prioritize any ferry in the next half an hour. So if there's a ferry leaving in a half an hour, it's gonna tell you to do that instead of getting on BART or another option. So that's gonna be, I think, a really useful tool. It works very well on mobile. We have some information about how to pay your fares, how to sign up for alerts. On the homepage, we're gonna be talking about future initiatives that we're working on, and there's a section to really promote the latest emergency management projects and work. Our board meeting information, and then we have an area to kind of promote some of the latest things that we're doing in some flexible areas. There's a routes and schedules page that is a landing page for all of the routes and schedules. Again, same thing, interactive. You can go through each individual route. So just for example, I'll click on open an Alameda. This is loading slower than it will in real life because it's the dev site, so it's a little. But right now, there's going to be, this is something they're working on. There will be a live map, though. You'll see little icons of boats in this area so that you can see which boats are coming, which way they're going, what time they will get to their destination. These maps are really large, so you can hide them. They're in the way. And then we have a much cleaner, easier way to look at the schedules than we did in the past. You don't have to open an accordion menu to see all the schedules. So there's information about the route, fares information, things about the terminals. The terminal pages, just going to open downtown San Francisco because it's obviously our most complicated terminal. But there's a map of where the terminal is, has all of the next upcoming departures for each one of our routes. And then you can click out to do the full schedule. It has a list of all the routes that are served. And then something like in the future we will plan to add is local attractions in those terminals. Any news updates, if there's a, Harbor Bay, for example, have a press release about our, recent grant and things like that. So those are the main tools for what we think of as our very experience also has things like our passenger guidelines and amenities, code of conduct, pet policy, things like that. So this is really what we think of as our tools for passengers and for riders, and that's obviously going to be most of the people using this site. The About Us section in Our Ferry Future is a lot more geared toward industry partners and the press. And so there is no more WETA.SanFranciscoBayFerry.com. It's About Us. So we are one organization and not two different websites. And that website URL will redirect here, where you can look at things about board of directors working with us. That includes procurement opportunities, employment opportunities, again, emergency management. You can look at all of our ongoing projects and our completed projects. You can meet our fleet of vessels. So this is a new tool. You can look at each vessel class and see the boats that are in that vessel. And then if you need to, you can see all of the boats in one table. And you can sort it. This is, I think, going to be a good tool for our grant workers and for people working on engineering, things like that. You can sort it all by passenger capacity, bike capacity, whatever is useful to you when you're talking about the boats. I think it'll be really cool. The board of directors, just to show you guys our page here. Is our board. So we have a panel for each one of you guys with a short bio and then links out to LinkedIn, things like that if relevant. And then underneath we'll have any relevant board news and promotional items that are coming up. Our Ferry Future is really, we wanted to really prominently feature all of the work that we're doing in both expansion and electrification. So we've divided this into two groups. Where are we going and how are we getting greener? So these are all ways to really show off the work there. And again, a lot of sample copy at the moment, but that's getting built out. And then quickly, just to finish, I want to show you some new tools that I think are going to be really helpful. This is a language tool. You can change this into, I think it's like 72 different languages,
Oh,
which will be really nice. And then this is an accessibility. This is an accessibility tool. So that if you want to pause animations, you need to hide images, you need to change the contrast based on an ability, this should really, really help accessibility to the site. So overall, I think this will be a much improved tool. It's going to make it easier to ride the ferry, and it'll help better promote all the great work that we're doing. Like I said, we're hammering out final bugs, and we're hoping to launch in a few days.
that's terrific.
Right, thank you. Any questions? So when will it go live?
We hope is Monday.
Oh, wow.
Monday? Wow, that's simple. That's great.
And right now we're you know, we have a lot of phases. This is going to be the first phase. There's a few projects that are still getting hammered out, and it'll just keep getting better over the next couple months.
That's
That's a
fine.
big improvement, yeah. And fun.
Great, thank you. Chair Wonderman, let me pause there if there's any, see if there's any questions on anything in the executive director's report before we move on to the rest of the reports from staff. And if not, we'll go to the monthly operations ridership and recovery report. You have financial statement reports and legislative reports in your packet. Tim is going to talk a little bit about the reliability and maintenance program, because we have had some issues after a string of months where we really have not had any service disruptions that are significant, cancellations that are significant. We have had some challenges recently. I just, before Tim starts, want to commend not just Tim and his team, Jeff and Solomon, who's new to the team and has been a great value add in terms of the efforts to get the fleet back to being 100% healthy, but Tim's team, the blue and gold maintenance team, and Tom and the operations department for managing these issues. I think sometimes when I look at the amount of issues that come up, incidents that happen, it's just one of those things where they all seem to happen at once, and it feels like there's no way we're going to be able to preserve our normal service, and somehow these guys figure out a way to do it. So it's really impressive to see how the issues that we've had on the vessel front are mitigated on a daily basis right now. But also, I think there's a lot of things that we know we can learn, a lot of things that we still are working on implementing from the third-party maintenance review that the board heard about a few months ago. And Tim's going to talk about some of that in addition to some of the specific issues that we've seen happen over the last month. Go ahead, Tim.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm Tim Hanner, Director of Engineering and Project Delivery. Today, I'd like to give the board and public kind of a state of the fleet and kind of where we're at, and, you know, to follow up on Seamus's comments, just what we've been dealing with in the last couple of months. We're kind of on a wave of some breakdowns and doing everything possible to get our fleet back up and running for our passengers. So going to kind of walk through some of that and then open it up for questions that you might have. First, you know, we understand the importance of reliable and safe transportation for our passengers. We are committed to maintaining the highest standards in our operations. Unfortunately, we've encountered unforeseen failures with several of our vessels over the last couple of months. In October, we experienced two rare vessel issues that have kept the Argo and the Dorado out of service for extended periods of time. This has led to reduced spare vessel availability and a number of cancellations. These issues have resulted in the vessels being temporarily out of service. We recognize the inconvenience that this has caused and are working to resolve these problems as quickly as possible. For the purpose of this discussion, I'd like to focus on the Argo incident, which occurred on October 18th. The Argo experienced a significant challenge by transiting past the ferry building. During this maneuver, the vessel suffered dual engine stalls. Despite the crew's best efforts, they were unable to restart the engines at that time. And their next step was an attempt to deploy the anchor, which they successfully did, but it didn't hold the vessel in place. And the vessel unfortunately drifted to Pier 14 and collided with the pier there. This collision resulted in damage to the pier as well as damage to the Argos window and some paint, some superficial issues with the side of the vessel. There were 44 passengers on board. I think we're all relieved to report that there was no injury sustained during this incident with crew or passengers on the vessel. Eventually, the crew was able to restart both the engines and they were able to safely bring the boat back to San Francisco, offload the passengers, and then eventually tie back up at the Central Bay Maintenance Facility. The damage sustained to the vessel and pier were not structural, but there's still a lot of work to do in order to get that vessel back into service. In light of this recent incident, WETA has taken immediate action to address the situation. To ensure a thorough and unbiased investigation, we have engaged a third-party naval engineering firm. This independent team of experts is tasked with providing a detailed report that outlines the findings and recommendations. Our primary goal is to identify the root causes of the incident and implement robust measures to prevent any reoccurrence. I'd like to now discuss WETA's notification and safety procedures as it relates to this incident and any incident that we face like this, and how we go about that process. And there's some key steps that we take. You know, we have the immediate response, which is Blue and Gold's initial response. And obviously the first priority is to ensure the safety of the crew and passengers. And that's the first thing that's undertaken. The crew immediately, once they've made sure that the crew is safe and the passengers are safe, the Coast Guard is notified. At that time, we deploy a response team that starts with Blue and Gold senior leadership, and I myself, Seamus Murphy, the executive director, and Tom Hall, our director of operations, is notified. This ensures that leadership is aware and we can be coordinating our response together as a team. Establishing communication, we promptly establish communication between key WETA and Blue and Gold staff. This step is vital for assessing the situation accurately and gathering all necessary information. Assessment and planning, our teams work together to assess the situation thoroughly. And this is definitely a team environment. I mean, it's the Coast Guard, it's Blue and Gold, it's WETA staff, depending on what the incident is. And we're really coming together to address the incident and, you know, take the next steps to either repair that vessel, report what we need to do, and to get the vessel eventually back into service. Stakeholder meetings, we then follow up with key stakeholders and we outline action items. These meetings ensure that everyone is on the same page and understands their roles and responsibilities for that specific incident. Throughout the process, we maintain open lines of communication with all parties. This helps in monitoring progress and making any necessary adjustments to the plan. Investigation and reporting. A thorough investigation is conducted to understand the cause of the incident. Along with our internal investigation, the Coast Guard is also conducting a separate investigation that we're helping them with that determines the outcome and what actually happened to the vessel and the result of that and how it's going to be repaired before the vessel can be put back into service. Based on the investigation results, we implement necessary changes to our maintenance and operational procedures to prevent future occurrences. This may include technical upgrades, additional training for our crew, and enhanced safety protocols. Over the past 2 months, we have faced several other unplanned failures that have impacted our operations. While some of these events were unavoidable, we recognize that there are areas we can improve to limit such occurrences in the future. I'd first like to acknowledge the dedication and hard work of the staff, not only the WETA staff, but Blue and Gold staff just on a day-to-day. I mean, we tend to focus on these failures and, you know, this was a big incident and we need to focus on this primarily, but on a day-to-day basis, Blue and Gold in particular, their engineering and leadership staff are dealing with this. And the majority of the time they're able to turn around and do some amazing things. So I just wanted to acknowledge that also, as we do tend to focus on the negative, and we should in this case, and we take accountability for that. However, we do understand that there are steps we can take to enhance our resilience or reduce the likelihood of similar issues arising again. As we do get these third-party reports, we will take those reports and implement any changes, either in engineering or operational changes we need to do with training. Some of the key topics we're going to focus on for this event in particular is additional training, increasing our spare inventory to ensure that we can respond quickly and repair the vessels as fast as possible. planning. So planning out the events or future events that might happen, so that we're ready to deploy the staff needed to make the repairs, have the inventory in place, and then enhancing our maintenance program. The maintenance program is always growing. We're always adding to it, and we can always improve on it. And we understand that. And this is an area where we're going to look in and see what we can do to make sure that these type of events or any failures across our fleet don't happen again on a regular basis. By focusing on these areas, we can build a stronger, more resilient operation. Before we get into questions and answers, I think it'd be good for Tom to talk about what we've done to, while we don't have our full vessel capacity, we need 11 boats to run our current service. We currently have 10 in operation. And so I wanted to give Tom an opportunity to talk about some of the things that we've done to make sure that our passengers aren't being affected by that.
Thanks, Tim. So as Tim said, we have 10 vessels for 11 boat service. That's a problem. Our top priority is we're not operating in vessels that are not safe to operate. And so there's never a question of pulling a vessel in before it's fully functional and safe to operate. So that's off the table. In cases like this, we have worked out with Blue and Gold Fleet a creative solution to use the Bay Monarch on weekdays. Particularly, we found one slot where it can work with minimal disruption. So on 2 of our morning Richmond round trips on weekdays, we are using the Bay Monarch this week. We have been since Tuesday. We will definitely through tomorrow and possibly on Monday as well until we start getting vessels back. This is if no one has been on the Bay Monarch, it's not your typical passenger ferry. It's more of a tour boat, 800 passenger capacity, I think. Really built for tours and bay cruises, not ferry rides. And so we do try to alert our passengers if we know that it's going to be in use, try to alert them in advance. It is a little slower than our vessels as well. And so that is why it's on the Richmond route, because there is enough slow time on that route and spaced enough departures so that we can minimize delays. We really don't want to leave anyone behind. And the other option, if we didn't use that vessel, would be to cancel service on 1 or more routes. And we want to avoid that to the extent possible. If we have to, certainly if there's a mechanical issue in the morning, we may have to cancel service. We've had to cancel service for other issues due to more acute, timely matters. The Bay Monarch plan, we call it our plan C. It's not even a plan B, it's a plan C, break in case of emergency. We have to mobilize that the night before because the boat is not at our facilities. It's at Pier 41. And so we have to mobilize a crew to go pick it up in the morning in San Francisco and get it into action. So huge thanks to Kent McGrath and the Blue and Gold team, both for making that happen, communicating with crews, and then Raphael Regan on our team doing a great job of alerting passengers whenever we have delays or cancellations. We've seen the SMS and email alert system that we talked about last year that we launched in 2023. It keeps rising in subscribers. That's the silver lining. Anytime we have a spate of vessel issues, is that people learn about the alerts and they sign up, and so they'll know about future alerts as well. So hopefully we'll get back on our feet in the next couple of weeks and have enough spares as we did for the past 8 months or so when we had plenty of spares standing by. And so hopefully we'll get back to that in the near term. And once Carl arrives, we'll have 1 more vessel at our disposal. Thanks. And I think, unless there are any questions, yeah, I think Gabriel Chan is going to talk about some good news on ridership.
How do the folks on the boat, when it happened, respond? The passengers as well as the crew?
The crew responded great. I think they did everything necessary, and they're trained for this, and so they do regular training throughout the year for an event like this, for like a for a propulsion stall where they're out in the water and they don't have any propulsion, and so from what we see, that the crew responded as they needed to. They notified who they did, and my understanding, I wasn't there. My understanding from the reports from Blue and Gold and from the crew was that the passengers were calm, and the crew did a great job of reassuring everyone right away and explaining what was going on.
We heard from four of the 44 passengers directly. 3 were obviously shaken up and reached out, and we connected them with Blue and Gold Fleet and claims, their claims department. Another passenger echoed what we heard Tim just say, is that they commended the crew and said they did a great job of making sure everyone was safe, everyone was well, and remained calm throughout the incident.
Quick question, just about Bay Monarch, with the size of this vessel, how's that performing at our terminals and boarding and embarking?
It fits up nicely at both Richmond and downtown San Francisco. I think it's not ideal because the lines are not necessarily set up for it, but the crew that we use for Blue and Gold, or sorry, that we use at SF Bay Ferry is experienced on those Blue and Gold vessels. Having sort of come up through those ranks, I think most of them have had more hours on those vessels than any of our classes. So they're well experienced in fitting those up at our terminals.
Yeah, and while the lines might not be just perfect because we don't run the Bay Monarch every day in a scenario like this. We have, through our emergency response and through our vessel designs, we have made sure that this type of class of vessel, either blue and golds or even red and whites vessels, can land at our terminals, either for charters or in case of emergencies. And so when it comes to ADA compliance and unloading, offloading, it's going just great. It's just because it's not an everyday situation, you know, there's takes a little bit more time with the lines and the crew's not used to it. So, but we think it's running really well. As a backup to a backup measure.
I guess I got like a few questions. One, once the investigations are done, are we gonna be able to have access to see the report of what went wrong mechanically? And what I have to look at him for, I'm asking him.
I got shut
You got
down,
answer it?
sorry.
Okay,
It's a lawyer question.
I'm gonna answer your first question.
yeah.
If you
Can
wanna
I
ask
finish
your
my
second question,
questions
of course.
to him and then you can answer all of them? Yeah.
I
And
didn't.
then two would be my second question would be, that I would like some knowledge of, or at least to be informed about, when they dropped anchor, why didn't they anchor hold? Is it an issue with our boats that we've had done? Is the anchor not heavy enough? Is the boat too heavy? Like something like that. And then three, you said that both motors stalled, and before that you said something else, and I wasn't sure what the word was. You said there was some kind of catastrophic something, and I missed what that was, why the motor stalled, or what had happened, or was that just you using a definition to explain the motor stall?
I might have just used the wrong words, but
Okay.
so anytime there's a multiple engines fail on a boat, I consider it a catastrophic failure
Yeah.
because you've lost full propulsion and you're drifting and you're relying on an anchor
Yeah.
to slow you down. So I might have phrased that incorrectly. But both engines did stall at this point. We don't have the report and all the records and information from the system yet to fully determine exactly what caused this. But both the engines stalled. We know that the crew tried to restart the engines and was unable to, and that's when they decided, and this is all happening obviously super fast.
Yeah.
That's when they decided to throw the anchor. Unfortunately, the anchor didn't hold in the spot they were in. That's something we're also going to look into. Great questions. I mean, those are the questions I had. You know, the boat is really heavy. You know, we're fairly confident that that anchor is sized correctly. We've done this for a while, but why didn't it hold? Did it not get down enough? Was it deployed correctly? We know the crew's trained on this and they do it regularly, so we don't necessarily think this is a crew issue. And so that's something we have to definitely follow up on.
So Steve, for the,
I just will, you know, there's an investigation underway on the cause, both as to the mechanical issues and to the crewing issues and who was responsible for the failure. And we'll make sure the board is well advised.
Yeah, I think on
Result of
the,
that.
I'm not worried about like if it was a crew issue, I get that, but if it was a mechanical issue or something with our boat, that's not being done right. I was wondering if we would have access to.
So, you know,
that
it's
information.
too soon to discuss in a public meeting like this. We don't have the report. And even if we did, I'm not sure it would be appropriate to discuss in a public meeting like this, but we'll make sure the board is
That was my
well
question,
informed.
whether we're gonna know or not. All right, thank you.
And I just had a question on the Monarch Bay. Is there a cost, an additional cost to us to have that in our service?
Yes, there is additional cost to that. We'll negotiate that with Blue and Gold. But that's a set standard fee that's in our contract with Blue and Gold.
And we're also negotiating it? It's a set fee, but also negotiating?
It's a set fee in our contract that we're gonna pay Blue and Gold, depending on the situation and why we're using it. There might be ability to negotiate that.
Got it.
The largest part of that cost are labor costs, which are passed through under the contract regardless of the vessel.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon, Board of Directors, Gabriel Chan, Transportation Planner. So more good news this month. In October, we had just over 262,000 boardings on the SFA ferry system. And this is a little bit higher than what we projected in the budget. So we're still making good progress month over month with that. Compared to 2019, we're at about 84% of pre-pandemic ridership. And compared to last year, we saw about 48,000 more boardings in 2024 than 2023 for October. As you know, Fleet Week happened in October. It was the biggest ridership weekend ever. And that is part of why, if you look at the charts, you see that the weekend days are kind of on par with the weekdays. And just generally, weekends have been very strong the past year or so. Another thing of note is the Oakland Alameda Water Shuttle, which has been wildly successful, is now on par in terms of ridership with some of our regional routes like South San Francisco. So, news to report there. Happy to take questions.
Questions? And that's great news. Week was awesome, and I'm glad we helped make it awesome and benefited from it too.
Thank you.
Thanks. One more report of staff. Gary Griggs is going to walk us through the first quarterly review of the capital program. Gary's been on board for, I think, about 4 months now, and has been hard at work getting a handle on the various capital projects that need to be implemented and are in various stages of planning and implementation. And so he's consolidated that, and he's going to give us a summary of where things stand.
Okay, thank you for that introduction. Chair Wunderman, Vice Chair Moyer, Directors, Dr. Murphy, and guests and staff. Gary Griggs, Chief Capital Program Officer. And I'd like today to report to you on a quarterly report that we'd like to bring forward for the benefit of everybody, but especially for senior management and the board, to give you a status report on where we are with the capital program. And so I wanted to walk through that. This is somewhat of an expansion over what you're getting in the financial reports. And you may have noticed over the last couple of months that even the financial reports have had a lot more information in regard to the individual projects that we're working on. We wanted to pull that together into an even more comprehensive report that you can see what the status is, and wanted to walk you through that. I want to, in your packet, you have that report. And I want you to understand this is a preview. This is the first one out. It's kind of a work in progress. We very much welcome to get your feedback on it as to, is this the sort of things that you'd like to see and what additional input you'd like to see us put into it. But I'd like to walk you through that report. Basically, want to give you up front an idea of what's happened in the quarter and what major accomplishments related to the capital program. And then we want to report on key performance indicators, especially on schedule and cost and risk. So you saw that in this first report. And then we'd like to give you a look ahead about what's coming up in the next quarter. And as I go through it this time and present the report, I'm going to add in some additional information to kind of talk about how we're managing and delivering the program. And so hope that you'll bear with me on a little bit of a project management seminar as we go through it. So in terms of the performance of, a lot of good things have been happening. And of course, we've talked a lot about what's going on the financial side and the increased funding. And of course, that puts a lot of pressure on us that are obligated to deliver the program, given that additional funding and some of the guidelines and delivery dates and requirements of that funding. We have, along with your approval, have restructured the capital program organization and added additional resources to it as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the presentation. I also want to talk to you about the project management approach we're taking. So as the program has been expanding, we need to implement stronger management procedures to it. And now we have over 30 projects that we're tracking, and you see in the reports. So we need to make sure that we have the methods and means established to accomplish the goals that we have on the program overall, but in particular on the individual projects. And then It's broken into a number of categories. We have the vessel procurements, we have the repair and replacement of both vessels and infrastructure and facilities. And then, of course, we have the reef program. And a lot of attention on the reef program as well, which also includes vessel procurements and also the facilities and electrification work that comes along with it. Some of the things that have happened, and you're aware of this because we report on a regular basis, but we're undertaking procuring the vessels, the battery electric vessels. So the RFPs were issued, the proposals have come back in, we're reviewing those. We're getting very close to making some awards on those battery electric vessels, very exciting. And a very unique part of the program is the universal charging float. So we're converting these floats into basically facilities that we can actually charge the vessels when they're ported. So similar to what we do with our electric cars, and we have to go in and have some way of charging them. Very exciting part of it, and a very unique part and challenging part. And then, of course, we have the terminal electrification work. We have to get the power from the existing utility services down to the terminals to have available for these universal charging floats. A couple other things that we've done, we've strengthened the project control system. So I want to call out Joe Ramey, who's our project controls manager. So he's been working very closely with me to get some project control systems laid out that you'll see in our report. And then risk management. We've implemented a risk management program because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to deal with is how do we address the risk. And then the executive director has spoken at length about the challenges that we're facing in the industry in terms of the economy. And we're still working our way out of the pandemic and all the effects that came forth from that. So we have some challenging areas there that we have to address as we try to implement and move forward on the program. So one thing, the program is really a collection of projects. And we've broken those projects into two fundamental types. The planning projects, and we have quite a number of those ongoing, and delivery projects. And so the program is really structured around that. And I'll walk you through that process as how we go from planning into delivery and ultimately completion. We are proceeding in general accordance with the blueprint, which is a phased approach of phases 1, 2, and 3. So we're concentrating very much on the early phases of phase 1 and 2. And doing a lot of work in the vessel procurement and the electrification of the facilities that go along with those initial phases. And we have deadlines that we're trying to meet in that regard, as well as the additional deadlines that come along with financing and funding. Here's a probably oversimplified graphic of how we go through the project steps. And looking at planning, where we have to do outreach, we have to bring in community support. We have to identify funding. We have to go through the planning process of looking at alternatives and other factors that come into that. And then obviously environmental. We have to make sure that we're satisfying the various resource agencies, CEQA, NEPA, and others as we move forward, BCDC in particular. And once we get to that point, then we have a decision to make. Are we in a position? Are we funded? Are we cleared environmental? Does the project make sense to move forward with? And that's the decision point. And then we move into delivery. And delivery basically is design, construction, and operation and maintenance. Now, this is oversimplified, so we put the arrows in showing there's a lot of give and take in this. And it's not a kind of a very specific cutoff point where all this happens. There's overlap. And so it's very interactive, so we don't want to be siloed in it, but just kind of gives you an idea of how we flow through the overall project delivery. In terms of the organization, then, if you look at the organization for the capital delivery, capital program, it's structured in that exact way. We've got the planning group under Mike, the director, and then we've got the delivery group under Tim. So we structured the organization right in line with the way that we want to deliver the program. And of course, we're part of the larger organization and draw tremendous support and necessary support from the entire organization in terms of delivering the program. A little bit about project organization. So a real key on the individual projects is that we have to have a project manager. We have to have somebody identified that's going to make sure that that project gets done. So for every project we have, 30 some projects, we have a project manager identified for each one of them. Now you're going to ask me, well, wait a minute, we got 30 projects, do we really have 30 project managers? No, we don't. So some of the project managers are taking on more than one project, especially for the smaller project. But we are very much looking to bring additional resources in that regard, so that we have those project managers critical to delivering the program. And then of utmost importance is that they have to have the safety and quality components and the project controls that go along with it, as well as we're deriving a lot from consultant support. And we're fortunate that we do have good consultants who are on-call programs that you've approved to support the work and execute the work that we do. So a lot of our effort is really managing that as opposed to actually executing the design and planning work. And then, of course, our own staff supporting. So for every project, we've laid out this type of an organization. So there's a little bit of a method to our madness as well, okay? And that's basically we apply the best practices and guidelines of the Project Management Institute and the so-called Project Manager's Book of Knowledge, PMBOK. And some of the things that are highlighted there, and we highlight in the way that we deliver our programs, is obviously safety first. At the very top of the list is safety. We've got to make sure whatever we design and deliver is going to meet the highest of safety standards, but quality, risk, and then a lot of concentration on scope, schedule, and budget. And then we're trying to, and we will be integrating more into our program, the concept of contingency. So because as we identify the risk profiles on these projects, we want to then put in some contingency just in case those risks are realized. We'll be adding that into the report in future times. And a lot of attention towards integration, the various elements of the program, the interfaces between the various elements of the program, that are critical and are places that we tend to have challenges with. And then obviously bringing resources that we need to deliver the program. Communications are essential, and absolutely transparency. So issuing this report is to make sure that we're putting out there exactly what's going on in the program for the benefit of those that have interest. At the end of the day, we use a term called, we plan the work and we work the plan. Okay. So here's what you saw in your first report. And this is a simplified schedule. We have, thanks to Jan Ripke, who's our master scheduler, I think we have over 1,000 line items in our schedule, so I'm not going to show all of those to you today. But we're going to be providing you a detailed schedule for each of the projects, showing what the plan schedule is and what the actual performance against that schedule is. And then of utmost importance is that we want to be able to show you within that overall schedule what the critical path is. And the critical path is basically the path combination of activities as we go through the schedule, that if we delay any one of those particular critical path items, it will delay the program. So that's a very important part of the schedule reports that we'll be giving you in the future. And then this is very much in line with the financial reports that Aaron gives you, broken out with all the projects that we're tracking, but a little bit of a different format is what you see in the financial reports. So the first line on it is basically, hard to read, I guess, but in the report, the first line is the budget estimate. So what do we see as the estimated cost of the project? We're doing a lot of work too. The team has been doing a lot of work looking at each project, looking at the schedule associated with the project, and fleshing out the budgets that are necessary for the project. The next line is committed to date, and that'll be where we can show you how much funding do we have in place for this project, and how does that line up with the budget if we need to look to secure additional funds. And then, of course, we'll show expended to date, and we'll show budget remaining. And then probably the most important line item on this report is projected at completion. So we want to be able to tell you, okay, we know where we are today. We know how much money we've spent to date, but where do you think we're going to end up at the end of the project? And the way we go about doing that is the concept of earned value. So when we do an earned value analysis, we look at a project and we say, how much has been completed on the project physically? And how much have we expended financially? And we compare those two. If we completed 50% of the project and we spent 50% of the budget, we're on schedule. But if it goes the other way, we're in trouble. So we want to make sure that we track earned value, apply that to the way that we move forward on the project. Then I want to talk a little bit about risk management as well. The way we look at risk is we look at two primary factors. One is probability that the risk might occur. And the other one is if it does occur, what's the impact of it? And we do what's at the top of this chart, what we call a heat map. So that if we have a low risk probability with a low impact, we'll call that low risk. If we have a high impact and a high probability, it's a high risk, and there's a lot in between. So we're starting to look at those types of risks that we anticipate. Funding uncertainty, of course, cost escalation, schedule delays, especially in light of what's going on in the economy and the challenge we have there, technical challenge. So on a regular basis, we'll go through these risk assessments and come up with how we're managing and mitigating. You're never going to eliminate risk, but you have to manage and mitigate. So with that, I'll move on then to the look ahead, and a lot of good things happening as we move forward. We're approaching the point of awarding the 115-400 PAX vessels. That's going to be a real major achievement and milestone. We're close to issuing the RFP for the universal charging floats, another major milestone. One of the first times such a thing has been done. We're advancing the terminal electrification of especially phase one projects in Treasure Island, downtown, Mission Bay, Seaplane, and doing planning preliminary engineering on Oakland and Harbor Bay, which is one of the items that's on the agenda today. And then continuing to look at the future projects at Berkeley and Redwood City and Vallejo reconfiguration. So those are some of the things that will be upcoming. And that's what I'll be reporting on a quarterly basis and what the team's been working on in terms of delivering the program and reporting to you about it. With that, I'll wrap it up and open it up to any questions.
Thank you. That's quite a program that you have going there.
Thank you.
Very impressive. Questions, comments from the board?
So what keeps you up at night?
Yeah, when I joined 4 months ago, I had pitch black hair.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how I remember it.
Doesn't matter what color it is.
Oh, man.
No, serious question though.
I've spent my life doing this, so it's just what I enjoy doing. And when you have a team like this, you know, to be with a dynamic, talented team like this, and to have a mission that we're taking on that's so important for the welfare of the world, I'm happy to lose some sleep from time to time to accomplish this sort of thing.
So maybe I'll rephrase, what on this list would be the most troubling or complicated or complex?
In terms of risk, one is funding uncertainty. You know, with every change in the administration, there's going to be some uncertainty. This particular change is probably going to introduce a higher amount of uncertainty than we have in others because of the different approaches the two administrations have. I was actually managing high-speed rail in 2016 when we went through the same transition. And you know, we'll move forward, and we'll make sure that we meet the needs of the new administration as we do that and deliver the project that's absolutely critical. But that's very important. The economy, and Executive Director reported on that very clearly. We still have the lingering effects of the pandemic. We did have a tremendous interruption to supply chain. We had 40-year highest, the highest inflation rate in 40 years. Fortunately, a lot of that is coming down and we're getting it under control. And then the resource limitations, and we even see it in the workforce development work that we're doing. So in the competitive environment right now, the contractors and design firms are busy. And so that affects the competition and the types of bids that we get in. So that's always a challenge.
Yeah, so given your history, I'd be curious your take on our risk with the capacity for electrification. So having done shore power at Pier 27 and other places on this waterfront, that worries me. We haven't really talked about that as it relates to our plans. But we're gonna be moving a lot from fuel dependency to electrical dependency. Talked about how we hedge for that, how we factor those delays into this program. I'm wondering what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of delivery of the program, we have some challenges there in terms of, especially on the land side electrification.
Mm-hmm.
Because one of the things is that the utility systems, as you're probably well aware, on a national level, if not a global level, are getting tapped out. There's so much electrification going on. AI is coming online, that's drawing heavily in the utilities. We're trying to supplement it with other means of green energy. But we're already facing that in some regards with some of the utilities here in the Bay Area about ability to provide the levels that we need. But we're working through that. But that's one of the kind of delivery aspects of it. There will be operational aspects outside of what I'm doing on the capital program, making the transition from diesel vessels to electric vessels. And then also on the delivery side is going to a full electric operation. We are going to be most likely the first one in the country. So we're breaking new ground. But there's one thing that we always try to do when we do that is look for service proven examples. And fortunately, we have some good projects in Europe, especially in Norway, that we're working closely with the firms that have delivered those programs there to make sure we're not doing something that hasn't been done before.
Yeah, but how are we planning? So this, just the system here, just in the ground, putting aside whether there's capacity in the system, but just the utilities in the ground along this waterfront, just this waterfront, not across the bay.
Yeah.
You're gonna be horrified. You just prep you for that. But how are we creating a contingency plan? Because when I read this table here, the one you showed, the mitigation is utility coordination, but that's a super simplified.
No,
So I'm just wondering how deep that
no,
goes.
you're right, Vice Chair Moyer, because especially here in San Francisco, we're more than likely going to put the primary electrification equipment up in Seawall Lot 328 under the freeway there by the bridge pier. We're working very closely with PG&E and SFPUC and the port to find a way to then bring that down. We'll need to bring conduit and cabling and trench work down to get it down here to the terminal and then feed our individual gates. And that's always a challenge when you get to doing underground work.
Under rail too. So I'm just, without going into the details of the mechanics of it, I'm just wondering how we're mitigating for potential delays there or unforeseen. And we don't have to answer today, but I see that as one of the more critical hurdles.
Yeah. Well, we're having almost continuous meetings with the utilities about this. And the port is very much interested in this as well, as how do we get power down to the port because they need it for other users other than SF Bay Ferry. Fortunately, they did it not too long ago, and you're probably well aware of this for the cruise terminal.
I am painfully well aware.
Yeah. So we
Color
have
my gray hair from that one.
I know, so we have lessons learned there, but it was accomplished and I'm not sure, hopefully we won't have quite the level of challenges that existed there because we do have a good site for electrification equipment up at Seawall Lot 328. So then it becomes basically underground trenches to get down to the waterfront.
Okay.
Any help you can give us with that, we'd appreciate it.
I go down. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can't go down the trail.
I mean, I've spent most of my career building major underground tunnel projects. And I always tell, clients when and the work that I was doing then in my previous life, that when you start digging through the bowels of the earth, you're gonna get surprises. But we've accomplished it. You know, when we did Central Subway here, for example, we had a mile of twin bore tunnels going right through the heart of the city. It went really slick. A lot slicker than I ever thought it would, because we thought we were gonna probably hit a lot of stuff down there.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Well, I don't want to hijack the meeting with that, but I just like, I'd like to understand more as we discuss the program going by.
yeah,
I think that's as critical as the funding and some of the other things that you highlighted.
and we'll give you a more extensive report on the risk management side of it with the mitigation measures. So give you a better view of exactly what we're doing to mitigate it.
Yeah, coming back to transparency, I think with all the projects, both facilities and vessels and floats, et cetera, I mean, and then all of the planning projects, the more transparency we can provide, the more prepared we are for, additional budget asks, and the more aware the public and our stakeholders are.
Yeah.
So I love this. You said something that I wanna just dig a little bit deeper into it. You said if a project is 50% built and we've spent 50% of it, we're on schedule, but that doesn't have to be the truth, right? We could still be 2 years delayed and have built 50% of the project and spend 50% on it. So I think it would be good to have an expanded table that shows, like, are we really on schedule as well?
Yeah.
And
That's a very good point, because
Okay.
yes, I was talking specifically about budget.
Yeah.
Schedule may be different, so we will factor in a key performance indice for schedule as well.
perfect. I loved Monique's questions here about risk level. And so up until just a few weeks ago, funding uncertainty might have been medium, but now it's high. And so I think going back and taking a look at this would be excellent, just to think about the coming 4 years or especially the next 2 years.
Yes.
And then I noticed that the cost performance table is dated September 30th. And so now we're in November, and oh my gosh, I know all of a massive amount of work that went into this. And I see under facilities, I see that the budget gap between estimate and committed for downtown San Francisco, Harbor Bay and Mission Bay. Did we close these? If we now actually secured the contracts and everything, or are we still, is there still a gap on a couple of them?
Well, first of all, we're very, very early in these projects in terms of the overall activity that we'll have to undertake to accomplish the project. So what we're doing there is, and we fortunately, I think, have the wherewithal to do it, is to fill that funding gap long before we have to make commitments to actually do the work, because we're still in the planning and design phase in most of these projects. So, but that's something we'll monitor very closely to make sure that we can fill that gap in time. We have a very strong process and that Aaron has implemented, that before we go out and award a contract to anybody.
Yeah.
We can only do it if we have secure funding.
Yeah.
And so that will continue to apply.
Great. And I think as you come back quarterly or more frequently if needed, really focus on where we're not meeting the schedule or funding requirements, or so that we have the transparency and we can show our stakeholders how we're doing and what we need in order to push everything forward.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, I want to have 90% be in the green and 2% in the red. That's likely not going to be the case. And so really focusing on where we're experiencing the highest risks, the gaps or schedule impacts or whatever it is, really focusing on those.
That's absolutely. And in regard to the day-to-day, we try to get these reports out as quickly as possible. We basically align with financial reports that's coming out of the financial group. It does take us about a month to really roll those numbers up to where we can present them to you.
Yeah. Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
anything else. I might close with just two comments, obvious comments. One of the greatest challenges of what we do is one, the very difficult task of protecting the future. And the second factor that we have to deal with is that the one constant in life is change. So those are the two things. And we're trying to set up means and methods here that will help us to get through this without suffering from those challenges. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Chair Wonderman, that concludes the
it?
reports of staff.
Longest.
I feel we need to take a break, you know, get a drink or something. Okay, let's go to the, I think we're up to the consent calendar, right?
Yeah.
I guess I regret to say, I thought that the consent calendar was too long. There were too many items on it. I had some questions, so I'm going to remove items E through H. And if anyone else, you know, there's a couple of other things on there that are certainly worthy of discussion. I don't have big questions, but I have a couple of comments and questions about those four. But if any other board members want anything else removed, or members of the public, let us know and we'll pull them.
Should I make a motion to pass the
Yeah,
consent
A through D.
through H?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to pass consent, except for items E through H.
Second.
Second, can you call the roll, please?
Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes.
Director Alba,
Yes.
Director Calvoto.
Yes.
Director Hughes.
Yes.
Item
Okay, so let's go to six E, which is to authorize contract award to Anchor QEA for Oakland and Harbor Ferry Terminal Modernization Projects, environmental review and permitting services. I see we have a guest making his way to the podium. My concern about this one really was just a question. You probably can anticipate it. But that there was that we didn't include cost in the scoring. And it was stated that we didn't include cost in the scoring, but I didn't really I guess I just don't really understand why, because generally in other bids, it's as much as 40 or 50% of the score. So 0 is kind of a low number. So what's the reasoning for that?
Sure, that's a very good question, and I will turn it over to Steve to answer.
Sure. It's a purely legal question, Chair Wonderman. Under both federal and state law, there are statutes that a public agency must award contracts for architect and engineering services, just architect and engineering services, on the basis of qualifications without considering price. That doesn't mean that you then can't negotiate to make sure that you are getting a fair and reasonable price, but you are not allowed, just as a matter of law, to include cost as a criteria in the evaluation process the way you do ordinarily in contracts other than architects and engineering. It's a law, you know, I mean, we could talk about the policy reasons of why that is, but that it is what it is. It's just a law.
All right, well, I don't really want to talk about the policy reasons of it, besides the fact that I don't, you know, I think it's a little bit strange, but maybe Monique, in your work, maybe you saw this, no,
Not until I got here.
yeah, so it seems odd, but, any other comments on this one?
Constitutions did a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we do a motion?
Yeah, we need a motion on
It's not
6E.
constitution, it's statute.
I make a motion to authorize contract award to Anchor QEA for the Oakland and Harbor Bay Ferry Terminal Modernization Projects, environmental review and permitting services.
You have a second?
Second.
And any comments? Call a roll.
Chair Wonderman.
Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes.
Director Alba,
Yes.
Director Calvoto.
Yes.
Director Hughes.
Yes.
Item 16.
So item 6F, award contract for MV Pixis and MV Vela repairs and dry dock to base ship and yacht company. So in the description, I understand what you're doing and I don't really have much question about it, except that in the background, first paragraph, it says that this is being done because their current certificate of inspections are expiring. But it says that yeah, I guess in the case of the Pixis, it says that it would indicate it expired January 17th, 2024. Was that a typo?
Honestly, I believe that's typos, January 17th of 2025.
Okay,
Okay. That's good.
you've answered my question.
Sorry about that.
Any other
Don't know
questions?
how that one got by me.
Quick question, why don't we have a total? Oh, no, oh, it's the total is in the front. Okay, no other questions.
Yeah. So that too.
That's
Yeah, I
it.
Caught it.
I'll make a
For all three
motion.
of
to
Yeah,
approve the
we
item.
just fix that and make, we have a
Second.
motion.
Motion, second.
Second,
Yeah, second.
we have a second, call the roll on 6F, please.
I'm sorry, who was first?
Yes, I think you're asking. Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes.
Director Alba,
Yes.
Director Del Bono.
Yes.
Director Du.
Yes.
So on 6G, award contract for Gemini class midlife refurbishment to Bay Ship and Yacht Company. And so I thought this one was just a little bit too sturdy of a cost to be in the consent calendar was really my thinking for pulling it. It's almost $12 million. And when you look, there were 5 companies that bid on it. I don't want to question, I don't question the evaluation process, and it appears that Bay Ship and Yacht was the low bidder, which is good. Their score for qualifications and experience of key personnel was lower than a couple of the other folks. And, to the previous item about engineers and architects, if we couldn't include price in this one, we would have awarded it to someone else, because I think we're saying that their qualifications outside of cost were better. There's a lot of work that's involved with these, the description is pretty intense, the work. And so is there a concern in terms of the qualifications because the major thing we want to do is we want to get those ships into these ferries into dry dock and get them out good and working again. So obviously we want to get a good price, but and it's great that it's going locally, but what do you say about that?
Yeah, certainly. Director Wonderman, sure. Again, I'm Jeff Powell, Senior Project Manager. First of all, let me start by all 5. We're super excited to get these 5 proposals. All 5 of these shipyards are more than capable of performing this work. And we talk about shipyards. Shipyard is a niche market in itself. But when we talk in the marine world, this is basic work scope that we send to these shipyards. There's nothing really extravagant in this type of work scope when we do these midlives. It may look like it, but we go through systems of propulsion systems, electrical systems. We replace worn out parts. We do complete makeover of the painting systems, the anti-fouling systems. We update CCTV systems. There's a whole list. There's quite a bit of front end work that goes in these technical specifications. So when these goes out to these shipyards, I mean, this is kind of standard work for these shipyards to do. Again, there's no doubt in my mind, all 5 of these shipyards are more than qualified to perform the work. The methodology chosen at the RFP was a best value approach, which 40% of it was based on price and 20% based on schedule. And they're kind of ranked amongst their peers. I wouldn't say, some of the proposals may read better than others when they present them, and that's just a function of shipyards go through a lot of effort to put time and effort into these proposals when they submit them. So again, just because they rank lower in class in one area, there's no doubt in my mind that all of them are qualified to perform this work. And I think at the end of the day, it came down to price.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
I just have a couple of questions.
Yes, please.
So just for consistency, can we put the total column at the end, or at the beginning, so that we're consistent between all of the. I mean, it's minor, but total column at the
Total points.
The total point.
To the right instead of the left.
Yeah, so some of them are on the front, some are on the end, and it's so minor. And then, of course, we have to just, we haven't had I don't think we've had a DBE, SBE update in a while.
Yeah.
This is a gigantic, this is $12 million over what time period, how many years? Is it gonna, how quickly is this gonna be spent?
This is over the course of about 16 months.
Okay. And so it's a big project. And we're not meeting any of the DBE or SBE requirements, which I understand, but at the same time, I think the board needs just to ensure that we're meeting the requirements by federal or whatever, but for every fiscal year. So it's less.
I think what you're saying is we need more than just a sentence saying we didn't meet
We
it.
didn't do it.
Or it could be whether it's a biannual report back on how we're performing from an DBE, SBE performance, or if we're just assuming that we're not gonna meet it and just have a good reason for it. I think that's what I'm asking for.
Hi, Terrence Candell, the Government and Regulatory Affairs Specialist, about this recurring issue of the availability of DEs able to perform the work as well as the shipyards doing a lot of that work in-house and us not being able to set contract goals to be able to have those DEs be required on those contracts. That is something that is actually coming, an annual report as to, those challenges and how they're addressed. But that is the current state with all these contracts.
And I think you were here for it, but a couple of years ago, or we did seminars.
Oh, yeah.
So
I just don't want the agency to not be able to meet them and that jeopardizing potential future contracts. And so it should just be something again, it's about transparency. So when we say we're currently not meeting it,
More explanation.
yeah, that's what I would want. So just be transparent that we're not gonna meet it for the fiscal year if that's the case, and so that we're aware.
Other, thank you. Questions, comments? All right, thank you. We'll take a motion, please, on 6G.
Move.
Yeah.
Motion and
Second.
second, call roll, please.
Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes.
Director Alba.
Yes.
Director Bellbo.
yes,
Director Hughes.
Yes.
Thank you. 6H, approved sole source contract award to Northern Lights Power and Energy for main engine preventative maintenance service. So we're going with you're recommending we adopt a sole source contract. And the logic is that there's only one company that can do it, that's authorized to do it. That's what it says?
Correct. That's the memo on file that we have, yes.
So, and the operation where they do it, we have to ship all of the engines. We have 8 engines. We ship them up to Seattle. I think it's 8 engines. Yeah.
So this
4
kind
times 2.
of ties into the Gemini midlife. So part of that midlife is taking the shipyard is going to take the engines out of the boat. They're going to put them on a truck and they're going to ship them to Seattle to the Northern Lights facility. And there in their facility, they're going to go through the what they call a TBO, time between overhaul, which is 6,000 hours. So they're going to refresh those engines, dyno them, send them back, and the shipyard will put them back in the vessel.
And they're the only organization that's authorized to do it.
They're the sole source provider to support the Northern Lights on the West Coast here. Everybody else that is a Northern Lights distributor works under them. So they,
Yeah. So you know what I'm gonna say next?
waiting for it. Motion? You're looking for a motion?
No, I'm not looking for a motion.
Wow, you
I'm-
look good,
I
Andrew.
was gonna ask another question. I was gonna ask if this organization was interested in opening up a shop here in the Bay Area so that we could work on our own engines with our, and because what you're saying is that the reason that it's going there is they have the talent. They have the workforce that can do this work. They're specialized to do this, which I think we want.
There's an advocacy group in the Bay that does that.
Well, that's what I'm doing right now. Yeah. That's what I'm
It'd
advocating.
definitely be worth somebody reaching out to them and asking.
Who would do that? Because you're their customer, so you have some leverage on them. You're the only one who can get them to even think about something like that. I don't know whether it's viable or not.
Right.
But, it seems to me, and I've said this a lot, that if we're gonna build up a maritime presence in the Bay Area, we need a skilled workforce to do it. And we don't have it. And as long as we keep shipping the work out to Seattle, they're gonna, they're gonna have it, so.
We're counting on you getting the company here.
I think I could just compliment what Jeff doing great, but just to add.
That's been awesome.
Depends how you mean complimented, you've been adding to it.
I'm gonna add and
Saying-
hopefully it
saying
answers
good.
your question. So Man Engine, we placed a large order with Man because of their emissions reductions. And their size and their weight. We have those engines on the Carl. We now have them on the Gemini class. And it was the first large set of engine orders in California. And so we like now we have a market here, and then the pilots just recently purchased an engine from there. So we're in talks with Man. One of our priorities is to have local support here in the Bay Area for just routine maintenance and repair for them to do. And so we are in talks with Man with about getting more technicians down in the Bay Area that are here and to provide that support. And they're showing a willingness to do that. And the more engines that we have in stock and the more operators that continue to purchase those, I think we'll be able to develop that. But for us, it would be absolutely amazing to have a local shop here that can do this work in the Bay Area. I mean, it's not necessarily fun for us to ship these things up and
No,
down.
it doesn't, and I guess that trucking isn't free, and it creates a lot of greenhouse gas right around those trucks up there.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Any other comments or questions on this?
I'll make a motion to move the item.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on 6H. Call roll, please.
Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes, please.
Director Alba,
Yes.
Director Delahunt.
Yes.
Director Hughes.
Yes.
And
Okay, thank you. Thank you, folks. Let's move to the non-consent items. Item number 7, adopt WETA terminal access guidelines.
Yeah, new board of directors, Gabriel Chan, transportation planner. So as you may have remembered, last month, we brought to you an informational item, the terminal access policy. And we thank you for your feedback. It was really helpful, really useful stuff. And staff since then have incorporated your comments into this updated document that we're bringing to you today. And we're asking you to adopt the new WETA terminal access guideline. So some of the major changes that have happened since last month include number 1, we've renamed the document to kind of better reflect the intent behind it. Number 2, we've included and clarified the agency's support for housing and transit supportive development. And so we've added that into guideline number 2 and 3. And that's really a recognition of the fact that the agency wants to have local jurisdictions co-locate more development, more housing at in the areas around ferry terminals so that we can help bolster ridership in a more sustainable way. And then number 3, we've readjusted guideline number 5, the mode share goals, so that it uses broader language to kind of describe how the agency will monitor and measure terminal access conditions, and as well as be more consistent with how the rest of the document reads.
Oh, okay.
So I'd say largely a lot of the same content, but just kind of.
Thank you. Maybe this one could have been on the consent calendar, right? Just you didn't change much from the last time we saw it. However.
I move
I
to
saw
adopt the
that.
WETA terminal
that's
access
fine.
guideline.
No.
Is it okay if I move?
Yeah.
Yeah, you move.
Yeah, I'm moving.
Let's move it.
Close.
Second.
Move in a second. So I have a couple of comments.
Oh.
I will point out that back when we first wrote SB 976 that created this organization under number 2, we would have stripped local jurisdictions from having any authority, and we would have commandeered local land use control to enable folks to get from ferry terminals to wherever it was they were going. And we would have controlled that, but Senator Don Parada, in his wisdom, took that out of the bill. And Brian Kelly, who was his chief henchman in that, who became the head of the High-Speed Rail Authority. So probably wisely so. But in any case, what it requires of us, it's not a small feat to work with local jurisdictions in order to make this happen, because it's, they don't have the same necessarily motivations aren't always shared. Hopefully they do. It takes a little bit, it's extra work when you don't have the authority. The other one, I would just urge, strong emphasis on item 4, emerging technology and pilots. So there's a lot of amazing things happening in the world of transportation, things we're just barely beginning to see. And I think in the future, we're going to see a lot of. It's going to change the nature of street transportation, and it's going to create a lot of opportunities that we don't have today to get people to and from ferry terminals. And so I'm really pleased to see that it's in there, and let's really pay attention to that one. So that's my comments. Any other comments on item 7?
I just have a general, as we were talking about growing the industry locally and creating jobs locally, I don't know if we looked at California Jobs First and have seen if there's some way in that initiative to help get the DBs and get the, the industry and jobs here locally that would be supportive of our efforts and help us make sure that those taxpayer dollars are going back and investing in our local economy.
That was something that came out of, I think, the workshop that we did on expanding the industry. So it's something we will be moving forward with. And
I know it's kind of moving fast at this point, so I want to make sure we don't lose that opportunity.
I think we had a motion, right? And a second on this one?
Yeah.
Did we have that?
Yeah.
Melanie, has anyone signed up to speak on item 7?
No one has signed up.
Anyone wish to comment, questions on item 7? If not, call the roll, please.
Chair Wonderman,
Yes.
Vice Chair Moyer,
Yes.
Director Alba,
Yes.
Director Del
Yes.
Director King.
Yes.
Item number 8. Non-rider research and marketing update. This is fascinating stuff. Let's go to it.
Great. Thank you, Chair Wonderman. In light of the fact that this has been a pretty hefty meeting so far, and I know you have a closed session ahead, this has been a collaborative effort. We'll have a lot of people speaking. We'll try to keep it as swift as possible, of course, answering any questions that you have along the way. So first we wanted to talk about our non-rider surveys that we did. John Canapari from Corey Canapari, our on-call surveying and market research firm, is on the call and can provide some comments after I walk through these slides briefly. But we did last spring complete 2 surveys of non-riders. So on an annual basis, we are surveying our riders to find out why they ride, who they are, what we can improve. This is the first time in at least since I've been here, probably longer, that we've surveyed non-riders directly here at SFA Ferry at WETA. And we did this to learn why people aren't riding, why people, what barriers there are for folks who don't currently ride, but do travel the corridors that we serve. So we focused on East Bay residents because that's our bread and butter. And we focused on those who travel to San Francisco or South San Francisco at least once per week. The geographic focus in the East Bay were really in 3 catchment areas. One was Solano and Napa counties. We consider that the Vallejo route catchment area. Western Contra Costa County, which we consider the Richmond catchment area, and then Northern Alameda County. So Oakland, Emeryville, Berkeley, of course, Alameda, San Leandro, zip codes in there that we consider both Harbor Bay, Oakland and Alameda Seaplane routes, including the South San Francisco route. I will note that we had very few respondents who lived in those communities and traveled to South San Francisco. There is some data in the report. We don't consider that statistically significant for the South San Francisco route, but we also know that that's a pretty controlled environment of potential riders that work at relatively few employers around the Oyster Point Marina. So we find that we can reach them a little more easily. In terms of the quantitative tool that we used, 466 validated respondents for a phone survey for that. Corey Canapari and Galanis then did deeper phone conversations with 35 of those respondents to get a little more qualitative information about their responses. And those were about 10 to 12 minute. The key takeaways, and the full report is included in the board packet. We also have a lot of data that we're going to be pouring through on our side as a team. To get more insight on our existing fares and service profile. So a lot of folks knew what SF Bay Ferry was, knew where their nearest terminal was, but didn't know much about our fare structure or the fact that we offer. So San Francisco side or a major barrier. So one of the most common reasons that people don't ride that we heard is that they work or travel to somewhere that's not in downtown San Francisco. So they're going to the Mission, they're going deeper into the city, SF State. And so the ferry doesn't work for them as well as either driving their car or taking BART or another mode. We did find that non-riders who were aware of San Francisco Bay Ferry generally had a positive view of the ferry system. They knew that it was reliable and clean and helped protect the environment. So those were all good things. We did ask just to make sure we were correct about this. We asked what they thought of driving into San Francisco or South San Francisco. They largely hated it. So that's a good thing for us to continue to tap into, is highlight how miserable driving is making you and how much better the ferry could be. And then convenience are really cited as additional major factors causing people to not adopt ferry commutes. In addition to the location of our terminal here in San Francisco, frequency and hours of operation were seen as barriers. Given that there's an information gap about how much service we do offer, and this is considered a barrier, that's one of the key things that we want to address in our marketing and outreach efforts, is to let people know, show them that we have lots of service throughout the day, 7 days a week, and that they can use the ferry to get where they need to go. At this point, I'll turn it over to John Canapari if he has anything to add. John, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Tom. I think you covered most of the key highlights. I think the full report obviously has more information, in addition to that. I mean, the one thing that I would add was kind of related to the positive view of the ferry. One of the questions we asked on the survey was, what are sort of top reasons that you would consider the ferry, using the ferry? And the top one was environment, which is good to know. The second one was, well, the traffic's so bad, I would consider it. But the third one was that that the ferry is reliable, right? And so I think that's that's a pretty high place for that particular aspect to be for a transit survey. We typically would not see that. That would not be something that people would say, I would, I consider it reliable. And that's one of the reasons that would draw me in. So all three of those are important, but that was one thing I thought I'd call out as well.
Great. Thank you, John. Now I'll turn it over to Lexi Matsui to talk about some listening sessions that we did.
Hi again, directors. So we worked with DNA Communications, who really specializes in reaching different groups around the Bay Area, to conduct some listening sessions or focus groups of some key demographics. So those areas focused on Black and Latino participants. Past onboard surveys and our ridership has shown that Latino and Black ridership is lower than it should be expected based on the demographics of this area and the communities that we serve. So we held our DNA conducted 2 in-depth sessions. They were 90 minutes long, held virtually. They had very skilled moderators handling both of those conversations, one with Black participants and one with Latino participants. And the participants were selected based on a lot of the similar criteria to the non-rider survey, people in the zip codes that we were looking for. And they really tried to get a big variety of income, age, and gender, and also people that regularly need to come into the city, either or South San Francisco. So, I think a lot of the takeaways were very similar to what we heard in the non-rider survey. There's a big information gap, but very specific things like they didn't know there was free parking at a lot of terminals, or didn't realize that kids under 5 were free. And so I think there's a big opportunity to make sure we're getting those messages across. Again, obviously fares, a lot of them really thought that guessed that our fares were much higher than they are. So we need to get that message out more. And then there was this belief that, the ferry is more suited for leisure than commuting because it takes more planning. It's harder, it takes more intentionality to figure out when you're going to ride, how you're going to ride, how are you going to get there. So we need to make those things like the website easier tools for people to use to figure out how to get on. There was, in the two groups, I will say the two groups were not a monolith. There was a big difference of opinion and variety of shared perspectives for each group, but there were some trends that we saw. The Latino group said that cultural representation mattered to them. Seeing people that looked like them on the ferry makes a difference. And the Black group said that, you know, and the Latino group also really emphasized that environmental concerns were important to them as well. That a reason to support public transportation was to help the environment. Vessel safety, so not interpersonal safety, but just maritime safety was an issue that was brought up by the Black participants. Yeah, I mean, even just talking to them for 90 minutes about the ferry service, I think we converted some of those folks by the end of the session.
Good question.
Yeah.
What was the attendance on the two Zooms?
It was just 8 participants from the Black group and 6 from the Latino.
How many were invited? What was that outreach?
We did a social media outreach, and I think people got $100 for participating once they were screened. Yeah, they did it based on criteria. I think they tried to get around 10 for each group, but 6 being the minimum. But it was a small enough group that it made for a good, lively conversation.
That's good.
Now I'd like to introduce Dan Hudson from McKenzie Communications. McKenzie Communications is our longtime marketing and PR firm. They've been with us a long time and did a campaign for us for the peak season this past year that Dan is going to walk us through some of the highlights.
Good afternoon, Chair Wonderman, Vice Chair Moyer, fellow members of the board. Dan Hudson with McKenzie Communications. I'm here joined by our president, Janice McKenzie, and also Sarah Agerman, our VP too. So we are a marketing communications agency based here in San Francisco, longtime partner of San Francisco Bay Ferry and WETA. And we're excited to present to you today an overview and recap of now departing from the ordinary, the brand awareness campaign that we executed some time ago. So I'll run through some aspects of the campaign and kind of take you through our approach and whatnot. So we worked with SF Bay Ferry's marketing and comms team for a little over a year, getting the campaign developed and executed. And it's really an omni-channel campaign. So focused on building awareness, growing ridership, and introducing new audiences to the San Francisco Bay Ferry brand and all of the offerings that it provides. So we used a mixed approach, a paid media approach to reach different audiences through different channels. Here's a couple of the key objectives of the campaign. First, coming up with a creative theme that reinforces not just ferry service, but San Francisco Bay Ferry's unique brand and unique experience. Increasing awareness, again, through a multi-channel approach, reaching different audiences in different ways, thinking about how we might identify and engage with different diverse audiences and low ridership communities. And then bringing the SF Bay Ferry brand to life in new ways. So different activations, using animation, video, radio ads, all of those kind of things. Amplifying reach through collaborations. So thinking about a hyper-local approach and how we can meet new people by using publications that speak to different interest groups and different personas. And then ultimately growing ridership and promoting our unique service offerings. So before we jump into the tactics and the overall strategy, we thought we might give you a little bit of background on the theme and how we landed on this theme. So there's something special about San Francisco Bay Ferry, obviously, and we've been working with y'all for a long time. So we're passionate about it, but we wanted to position SF Bay Ferry as more than a mode of transportation. It is a mode of transportation, but it's also unique and it's an extraordinary journey across the bay. So we wanted the thinking, and this is, and I say we, the agency, the marketing and comms team, Seamus was involved in this as well, but thinking about capturing the feeling of escape and freedom and adventure that is SF Bay Ferry. So we landed on this theme of now departing from the ordinary, which is, kind of gets at the ability for riders to escape the everyday. And there really is nothing ordinary about a ride on SF Bayferry. So along with that theme, we developed an identity, a look that's whimsical and fun and approachable and hopefully eye-catching. At least that was the goal. So put together a strategy that really leads on 5 different channels. The first being out of home, and we'll get into this a little bit more, but out of home, digital and programmatic ads, print, radio, and then editorial content, sponsored posts and promotions. So different touch points, different ways to connect with people, and also different ways to interact with the SF Bayferry brand. So just kind of a 30,000-foot view of each of these different tactics and channels. The first being out of home. And you see a picture here, partners at AC Transit. But we used a couple different ways, different techniques here to reach people visually. The first being 14 billboards across, in major traffic corridors, including on I-80, 880, the Bay Bridge was another high frequency placement. If you come through Embarcadero Park, you may have noticed the digital live boards that were running video ads. And then, of course, AC Transit bus ads, which are moving billboards in and throughout Contra Costa County and Alameda County. So a couple numbers here for you, but all in all, over 16 million impressions across those 3 kind of buckets for the duration of the campaign. And then just a look at, the live boards. That's a billboard alongside the Oakland Coliseum on E80. So second major channel here is the digital channel, and programmatic being a way to buy ads on the free market, if you will. But there were a number of different digital techniques and tactics used. So static ads, Google search ads, display ads, connected TV, so video ads. And Lexi did great work as well, leading the charge on that and developing a number of these video ads. So, YouTube TV, we say Meta, but Facebook and Instagram ads, Google search, I mentioned Peacock, NBC Bay Area, and then audio ads. So streaming audio, Spotify, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on the radio side as well. So a couple highlights from this, over 15,000 clicks to SF Bayferry's landing page, as well as a 60% completion rate for the YouTube TV ads, which was great. That's up 6 points from the Best Way Back campaign that was ran a couple years before. And those are really strong. So a couple, just looks here at some of the commercial work. And then radio, so separate from the Spotify ads and whatnot, we wanted to reach drivers and other commuters. And that was the focus here, was running 3 variations of radio ads across some of these different outlets and these different platforms. KCBS, Alice, 95.7 The Game for the sports enthusiasts and the Warriors riders, whatnot, and then Que Buena and Euphoria Music as well. So and that yielded over 3 million impressions for that aspect of the campaign. And then final bucket here, and this does include print, is the sponsored and editorial content. So more long form stuff, long form articles. Some of it's pay to play, it's paid, but it's really about connecting with people that want to know more about not just the ferry service, but the events around the ferry service or local activities and it really getting at families recreational riders and prospective recreational riders. So working with outlets and content providers, if you will, and Instagram sites, organizations like Do the Bay, Broke Ass Stewart, which has a big following, Fun Sheep SF. So thinking about what you can do, on a given day and where you can go on the ferry. East Bay Magazine, 510 Families, and then Univision. So, and this was, I think this was a first in a lot of ways, partnering with some of these different publications that are a bit more hyper-local or at least targeted. Some of these going after younger riders. And it was very successful. They were high engagement, over 9,000 social engagements, almost 1 million impressions, and then 1.3 million email newsletter subscribers. So a lot of these, some of these packages that we got, in addition to the articles or the editorial content, it also included inclusion in newsletters. So this is kind of a look just at what we're talking about here. You see great photography, get people excited about it, and what it might look like on some of these different platforms. So obviously we have more data, but high level, 3 key metrics for the campaign as a whole across all of those. Almost 40 million impressions. This is across 8 months or so, a little over 8 months. 30,000 plus landing page hits. And it's going to be, and if you do this now with a new website, I'm sure it's going to be even better. And then 1.3 million email newsletter subscribers receiving content about the campaign, about SF8 Ferry. So yeah, that's kind of an overview of the campaign as a whole. But happy to field any questions, or if there's, I know you're going to cover a few more things though too. So yeah, great.
Thanks,
Great.
Dan. So we'll go from a campaign that's been wrapped up really for a little bit of time now. We just wrapped up the sponsored content piece of that in October to a campaign that's going on right now.
Just thinking back to this past year, the campaign has been hugely successful and has been such a fantastic addition to, or way of promoting the agency. It's fantastic. How does our market or WETA's marketing budget compare to revenue or budget or whatever, compared to other agencies in the Bay Area? Are we spending more or less,
Small but growing. Thankfully, the executive team at WETA and the board has supported increases in budget for the actual advertising budget. I'll say when I started here in 2018, it was relatively small. Frankly, we were maxing out most of our ferries and didn't really need to advertise because we couldn't carry that many more people. We did have a significant campaign for the launch of the Richmond route in 2019. We spent about $200,000 on that. We're spending about double that system-wide these days as we work towards recovery. So we don't actually have good data on other transit agency marketing budgets, something we're working to understand kind of where we stand. But I think we're on the lower end in terms of ongoing spend.
Yeah, I mean, seeing of course, the transit agencies have seen a significant increase in ridership over the past year, generally here in the Bay Area, but the 20+% increase that we're seeing it's pretty phenomenal, right? So it's money well spent, I would say.
Great, thank you. We'll remember that come budget time. And I'm sure our next, the next folks that will be speaking from DNA Communications, we're really excited about the campaign they're running right now. So I'll introduce Melanie Brand and Allison Ramirez from DNA Communications.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tom. Good afternoon, everyone. As Tom said, my colleague Allison Ramirez and I have the pleasure of joining you today on behalf of DNA Communications. We're really excited to share the progress and impact of the Ferry There campaign. It's a comprehensive marketing and outreach initiative designed to reach a diverse range of potential new riders. Let's go to the next slide, because before we're diving into the campaign details, I want to speak a little bit more about DNA Communications and what we stand for as an agency. We're very proud to be an equity-first, full-service communications agency with over 30 years of experience supporting Bay Area organizations. Our mission and values are rooted in uplifting the communities throughout the Bay Area, focused on social impact from day one. We partner closely with our clients, such like WETA, to tell and amplify your story, aiming for impactful and inclusive, meaningful results. When we go to the next slide, you'll see a visual representation of our collaborative approach for every campaign we run. I'll go back a little bit in time to talk about when the Ferry There campaign actually emerged. And that was when we reviewed the 2022 onboard passenger survey, which really highlighted impressive satisfaction rates among current riders. But comparing the rider demographics to the diverse communities the ferry serves, we identified a gap and a powerful opportunity to reach new audiences, especially amongst the Black and Latino residents in the East Bay. So we did lean into the unknown to grow, right? And what we have to do first is really understand the audience. It's essential. So we began with the research and discovery phase. Personally, this is one of my absolute favorite stages of every campaign. It's where we get to listen to the community, hearing directly from them before making any assumptions and putting materials out there, right? So this foundational research has shaped every step we've taken since to bring this campaign on the road. And as Lexi mentioned, we held some listening sessions earlier this year with East Bay community members, and these conversations were absolutely invaluable in helping us understand the perceptions and concerns around the SF Bay Ferry, and they revealed more so opportunities to build trust and clarity. These insights guided the campaign design and development and allowed us to craft messaging pillars designed to address questions and encourage informed choices about commuting with the ferry. We're now in the midst of the implementation and engagement phase for this campaign, actively monitoring, optimizing, and continuously learning from the community's feedback. And this ongoing engagement really allows us to refine our efforts and ensures that WETA's outreach remains aligned with the community's needs. Let's go to the next slide, please. Thanks. So our objective with this campaign was crystal clear. We wanted to reach, educate, and engage a diverse rider demographic, particularly focusing on Black and Latino residents in the East Bay. To meet this objective, we developed a multi-channel approach and deployed 6 key tactics. Each of those tactics is playing a unique role in driving awareness and fostering engagement with the target audiences. I will now hand it over to Allison so she can share a little bit more about these tactics.
Feel free to go to the next slide, Tom. Thank you so much, and thank you, Melanie. Hi, everybody. I'm Allison Ramirez. In preparation to launch the WETA Low Propensity Rider Marketing Campaign, otherwise known as Ferry There, it was essential that we equipped the SF Bay Ferry social media team with the tools and content needed to keep up with the fast-paced social media community. To align with the SF Bay Ferry's overall brand guidelines, we designed a series of visually engaging social media templates tailored for Facebook and Instagram. These templates were specifically crafted to highlight the benefit of ferry travel, such as affordability, reliability, comfort, and safety. We can go to the next slide. These themes resonated well with our target audience, as we used similar designs and copy for the digital ads that launched a little over 2 weeks ago. Our digital ads focusing on generating clicks and also providing critical information that are anchored in the messaging pillars we heard within the focus groups. There were a lot of misconceptions of the ferry, and we are providing digestible information that helps new riders understand the process, routes, and also feel more prepared when taking on a new form of transportation. We have taken the ads a step further by translating them in Spanish, and it is still early in our campaign, but we are seeing our Spanish ads outperforming our English. To keep this progression going, we are in the process of launching our Spanish and English audio ads to ensure diverse communities not only see themselves on the ferry, but can also hear voices and messages similar to their own. All of this is an early but clear indicator to me and many others of the potential and prosperity that comes from creating campaigns that authentically represent the target audience and low-key prepare riders for the exciting multilingual updates that are coming soon to the SF Bay Ferry website. Next slide, Tom. Thank you. A core component of our strategy was partnering with local creators of color who have a strong and diverse community within the SF Bay or the Bay Area. Collaborations with our 5 creators have driven over 500 ticket sales thus far. We closely collaborate with our creators to ensure that they have all the information needed to make content that matches not only their authentic personalities, but as well as contribute to building brand awareness for the SF Bay Ferry, educating their audience on the ferry process, and increasing overall ridership. Our creators have a diverse voice, which allows the SF Bay Ferry to be present on new platforms such as TikTok and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a social platform that has been ignored in the past, but it is proving to be fruitful thanks to one of our main creators, Kiana. As we aim to engage our young professionals of color who are in search of a better and at times a ferrier commute to work. Next slide. So these creators have a multitude of skills, one of which is actually Gabriela Aleman, a talented illustrator that's based in the Mission. We partnered with Gabrielle to create the postcards and posters you will see today. Gabby utilized key staples of the Bay Area and proving that crossing the Bay the ferry way truly is the best. The direct mailers were sent to families in Oakland and Alameda, Vallejo, and Richmond, and are equipped with QR codes which lead potential riders to learn more about their nearby routes and purchase their tickets. Next slide. The next phase of our street marketing approach are the placement of posters and postcard stacks in high foot traffic areas and community hubs such as laundromats, local cafes, and small businesses. This added visibility allows passerbyers to engage with our message in their everyday routine. Postcards were distributed to Oakland, Alameda, Vallejo, and Richmond. The posters were distributed specifically to Oakland and Alameda. These methods are particularly effective as we are seeing a high rate of QR code scans indicating strong interest. Please note that these materials are still being distributed, with the final distribution actually scheduled for tomorrow, so Friday. And finally, I will hand it over to my colleague Melanie, who will go over some key highlights. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Yeah, as mentioned, we're still very early within the campaign rollout, but we continue to engage our target audiences. It's not too early, though, to talk about a few highlights so far. One, the campaign has already sparked conversations and shifted perceptions about the ferry as an affordable, safe, and efficient public transit option. Then next, we listened to the community and made sure we delivered the right messages on the right platforms in voices that they're used to and authentic, and that shows. So we see already high engagement within the East Bay with our Spanish language ads, as Alison mentioned, outperforming English language versions, indicating that the ads resonate strongly with the Hispanic Latino community. For the print materials, such as direct mail, posters, and postcards, we're already seeing significant attention. That not only shows to the high QR code scans that we can see across the East Bay, but it also gets a lot of appreciation for Gabriela Aleman's design of the ferry map on her social media content, followers asking how they can receive a print of the ferry map, and even other Bay Area accounts with really high following, 50,000 and up, resharing and complimenting her content and design. That is all basically free attention and awareness that we can create. Last but not least, our creator collaborations not only resulted in informative, engaging content, but already sold over 500 ferry tickets, each one of them being an opportunity to turn a resident into a new ferry fan. So these metrics demonstrate not only the reach, but also the meaningful engagement this campaign has achieved till date. In conclusion, the Ferry There campaign is effectively connecting with a diverse range of riders, enhancing WETA's visibility and positively influencing perceptions around ferry travel. We're super excited with the impact we have achieved so far, and are really looking forward to continuing our efforts and optimizing this campaign over the course of the next couple of months to reach riders in innovative and community-centered ways. Thanks again to Tom, Lexi, and the WETA team for this opportunity and to help us bring this campaign to life on your behalf.
Great. Thank you, Melanie and Allison. We'll just wrap up here with a slide showing steps for our marketing and research efforts. So as Melanie mentioned, the Ferry There campaign is in full swing right now. We're potentially going to roll that into the first quarter of 2025, where we had intended to end it at the end of the calendar year, but given the success, we may extend it a little bit further once we take a budget check and make sure that we're reserving enough for the next peak season before the next fiscal year starts. We're also going to begin developing concepts for the next peak season campaign with our marketing partners. We're really, based on the results from the Now Departing from the Ordinary campaign, we really think there's a strong need to focus on digital video in lieu of potentially some of the display and search ads that we've run in the past, talking about billboard. Such great cost effectiveness and targeting ability with the digital ads. And, you know, we have a Ferry system that's very aesthetically pleasing. And so using video to capture that is a great thing to do. Luckily, as a part of these campaigns, we've learned, we already knew it, but we've learned even more that Lexi Matsui from our team is a skilled photographer and cinematographer. She did almost all of the photos that we're using on the campaigns and coordinated all the video work. And we were able to do she was able to do the video production work in-house for the both the digital ads and the live boards that we're playing at Embarcadero Bard as well. Huge task. We're also going to dig deeper into the non-rider survey results internally. As I mentioned, we have a trove of data now we're going to be able to dig into. We're going to recruit other members of the team that are conversant in data to really pull out some additional learnings from that and use that to inform our marketing and outreach. And we're going to build plans and collateral focused on the information gap that we provide in both the survey and the listening sessions for our community outreach program, which is currently led by Next Steps Marketing, where they're going to community events and street fairs and communicating directly with potential passengers. We're going to use a lot of the info we learned in this process to inform the collateral that they're giving out and the information they're sharing at those events. I'd just like to turn it over to Seamus, who's going to talk about one of the questions unrelated to marketing or outreach that we asked in the non-rider survey.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I'm glad. I think it was Director Dew that recommended we do this survey. And as Tom mentioned, we didn't have to before the pandemic because we had full boats. And during pandemic recovery, I think we knew what we needed to do to maximize ridership, and that's worked, and things were evolving, and now things have settled. And so it made sense to do this non-rider survey. I think it's the exact right time to do it. There's some really actionable information that we glean from this. And one of the things that we included in the survey that I think is also actionable is a question about whether non-riders would commit their own resources to support expanded ferry service. And we're doing this because there's discussion around a regional ballot measure that could include investment in a bunch of different transit services. Most importantly for the region, and the reason for this discussion happening now is the agencies and operators that are facing an immediate fiscal cliff, but these are long-term measures. And so the best iteration of a ballot measure that we've seen is the Senator Wiener version that was paused without consensus to be able to pass it at the state legislature. That would have provided WETA with $25 million a year in operating support to allow us to maintain and expand our services. And the versions of the regional ballot measure that are being discussed now don't include anything close to that level of certainty around funding for operators that aren't facing an immediate fiscal cliff. We would, under the versions that are being circulated and discussed now, we would be competing with other small operators and asking counties to commit what is called county flex to support our operations, and going county by county in hopes that they would support our operations when our fiscal cliff is approaching in the middle and even earlier in the next decade. So these are long-term measures. We need more certainty than that. It's becoming really clear that achieving consensus around a regional ballot measure is going to be hard to do. And that, for that reason, operators are looking at doing their own thing. BART has the ability to do that under statute. Caltrain is looking at doing some polling, so is SFMTA. It's not an ideal way to approach what is a regional challenge, but it may be the approach out of necessity. So we have an opportunity to make our case. Would attaching ferry service funding to any of these measures help them pass is the question. And after looking at the results of the survey that we've done, I think the answer is undoubtedly yes. 65% is almost 2/3, but way higher than any other transit operation is seeing in their public opinion surveys. Low oppose levels compared to what other transit operators are seeing. There's more public polling that's going to emerge over the next couple of months, and so we'll have to see if that holds up. But right now, if I was looking at passing a regional ballot measure, I would absolutely want to include ferry service as a part of it to help it pass. So we're going to work on getting this information out to our regional partners, to other transit operators, so that they understand what it could mean for any potential measures, funding measures that are on the ballot in the future. And I think it's our best shot of working our way into this conversation. And it's one that we should be included in, because even though we don't have a fiscal cliff next year, we know we have one over the next several years. And these measures are anywhere from 10 to 30 years in length. So it's going to eclipse the time when we're going to need additional support to be able to maintain and expand our service.
Just to that, say that a large portion of our funding comes from bridge tolls, and MTC is pushing a multi-year 50 cents a year increase in bridge tolls just to pay for the maintenance of the bridges. And so there's probably going to be no appetite to do another bridge toll measure. If there's one to do just to maintain the bridges, it's going to be a struggle to do that. But actually, they don't need to do a measure for that, because WETA can do that without, they have the authority to raise the tolls, but it'll get under people's skin that they do it. And then to try to go on the ballot with a toll measure would probably be tough, pretty tough. So I think you're right, making sure that WETA is incorporated into whatever happens regionally is going to be really important. And this research, should underscore to other agencies the value of having us aboard.
Great. So that concludes the report. Happy to answer any questions.
And thanks for the report. I read it, and it's very comprehensive, and there's a lot of really great information. Go ahead, Director Delano.
I don't have a question. This isn't a correction for anybody. It's just information. I think before anybody was here, we didn't do any of this. So, and to say that we didn't need to do this beforehand because the ferries were full maybe, but we have a whole segment of the community. There was one segment of the community that rode the ferries, and it was people that were downtown that could afford to ride the ferries, and was predominantly, white. So this campaign to me is reaching out to communities that we weren't serving before. It's educating people that the ferry is safe, like all the stuff you went through, that it's affordable. That once you're here, it's a good ride. I've seen all these advertisements of the date night and all this stuff. I love it. I know I could speak to probably 20 people that I've talked to in the last 6 months that have said, man, I didn't know the ferry was so easy to take. I drive from Walnut Creek, I park at Oakland, I get up here. I'm like, yeah, I've been telling you guys this for but off the campaign ad. So I just think like this is money well spent. I think it's absolutely reaching communities that never had the opportunity to have boats or be on the bay. And I think like, let's not lose sight of that, because I think that's really like important here. And I think it's great money spent, and everybody that participated to this, awesome work. It's great. I love this stuff, and I hear about it on the ground. So it's even better when you start hearing it when you're out in the community and you're out in the city and you're talking to people that have come from the East Bay and they took the ferry over. So that's neat. The only one thing that I had, which was way back at the beginning on the non-rider survey, that was interesting to me were people that said, well, I don't take it because I gotta get across the city. I'd be interested to know, have these people ever ridden Muni? I mean, because a lot of people haven't been on Muni. I take Muni all the time. It's clean, it's safe, it's efficient. Right now it is. So, like, and hopefully it stays that way. But the one works, the N works, like to get out to the mission and stuff. So I guess, some of the people that aren't taking the ferry because they hate to drive, that it's less convenient, like, have they ever been on a bus? Have they ever used the bus? Like, something to figure that out too.
That's definitely something that we're keeping in mind, and I think the access policy that you adopted today will help along with that. Coming up soon will be the Clipper loader transfer agreement. It's hugely important to make it more affordable to be able to transfer, take multiple modes and pay one fare. It's going to be critical to allow us to market to people that you can get to Golden Gate Park via ferry. You just have a beautiful bus or light rail ride on the way there.
I want to echo what Director Delvano just said. And also just say, for those who are comfortable biking, you can get across the entire city on bay wheels and Lyft bike share. And get if you are a commuter, you can get a monthly, or you can get an annual subscription for less than $150 a month or a year. So yes, I think there are definitely opportunities for those who do feel safe biking as well. Go next.
I was just wondering, I really appreciate all of that information and the results we're seeing from that. I've seen the date night one too several times. But I'm wondering if we're considering reaching out, expanding our outreach to other ethnic communities as well, like maybe the Asian community or something like that.
Absolutely. So we'll be working on that as a part of the next campaign. We did focus on Latino and Black because the data had showed that those communities disproportionately didn't ride the ferry based on the communities we serve. We've actually seen that Asian Americans ride more than you would expect based on the demographics of the communities we're serving. So we wanted to focus on the low propensity riders at this point to try to expand our audience and get into communities where we haven't, as Director Delvano said, really communicated with in the deep past pre-pandemic. But definitely, I think the beauty of both campaigns is that especially the DNA campaign, the Ferry There campaign is targeted and focused on Latino and Black audiences. It's relevant information across the board, and we are making sure that we're not placing in exclusively places where no one else will see it. We do want to do Chinese language ads in the future as well. We've done some of that in the past, pretty limited. One of the constraints, honestly, in the past has been we don't have a lot of information in language on our website or in other places. Once we do outreach to a community, if we're not speaking their language on our side, it's kind of a wasted effort. And so now with the new website, we'll be able to do that much more easily and connect those conversations.
I'd be curious to know perhaps the value the Asian community is seeing in it and why they are choosing that more than others. And maybe that's something we could lean into in our marketing more.
A question, Tom, and with the many languages that we now have access to, or from next week, how is that language or that translation? Of course, it depends on the language, but is it 80% there, or is it or range between 60 and 95, or?
Yeah. The tool that they're using is the Google Translate tool, which is kind of the industry standard. And so I think it'll depend on the language and it'll depend on the complexity of what we're talking about. So for the passenger facing materials, most of it doesn't have to be translated. We're talking timetables and locations and mapping tools, and those things come across crystal clear. Where it might get a little bit more fuzzy is when we're trying to translate a complicated press release, where we're talking about really different language, using different language. So yeah, the tools are automatic. These are not, we're not having pages. I think we could in another effort look at some of our pages and see whether it's worth putting on, some human translation on those, the really high impact areas, so that we can make sure that those are being communicated in the way that we want them to. I will say some of the translation that we're doing with the DNA's campaign, none of that was automatic. They really looked for what's the best way to say this in this language. So even, across the bay, the ferryway, that doesn't translate exactly. So they, we really looked at what's the effective way to talk to this community, and none of that was just
Right.
out of the box.
And you get page like clicks and all of that. So if any page rises to the top in a certain language, we could spend more time on it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
One of the things on the website you showed earlier that got my attention was the Warriors ticket for the ferry. And I was wondering if, there's an opportunity to do something with the Warriors or the Giants, where you actually get the game ticket and the ferry ticket. So if you want to go to the Giants game and get a great deal, you go on SF Bay Ferry site. And because that's how you want to go to the game anyway, right? And you get the whole deal.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at big.
I know there's Ticketmaster.
I mean, especially once
They're
we
very
go
restrictive, but might be something to talk to the teams about, to see if they were interested, because it's marketing for them. That's what you're doing on our site, is marketing the Warriors, which is great. But
Yeah,
you should get some benefit.
that's a great concept. And I know Golden Gate Ferry in the past would sell their ferry tickets on the Giants page. There were some substantial fees involved with that, I believe, and so
Yeah.
they discontinued that.
So this is
But-
selling their ticket on our page, and there should be substantial fees for that.
Yeah, we're hoping for opportunity today and
Yeah.
the Valkyries coming.
Yeah, right.
Great.
Thank you.
So coming back to me.
Now, Madam Vice Chair.
I just wanted to say, I've seen a lot of the campaigns, both campaigns, and I think they're really great. I haven't seen all of it. I do think they're really great. I did see the Come With Me to Commute, which I really like. Thanks for doing that one, as well as the bus backs and the billboards. I'm pleased we're gonna move into LinkedIn. I think that's a great place to capture a different audience as well. So please just keep it all up. Thanks for all that you're doing, and I'm really pleased to hear it's gonna roll into 2025. I think we should keep up the momentum. And we didn't talk about, I don't think I have no idea where this falls, but the press you've been getting too has been phenomenal. And I don't know if that's part and parcel, or if that's just because there's been such great news and a lot of high-ranking officials involved, but that's helped a lot too. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all credit to the work the board and the rest of the WETA team has done to bring those big grants, those big news-making opportunities to bear. And certainly McKinsey Communications helps us ensure that we're getting the right message out around those big achievements.
Yeah, keep it up. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks to the agencies for the great, high quality work. It's good.
Yeah.
Great-
And staying
great
through
partner.
consent calendar too.
Yeah.
Say what?
They stayed all the way through our
I
consent
know.
calendar too.
Well, they had to. Melanie, has anyone signed up to speak on this item?
No one has signed.
Public?
We
Anybody
wore them out.
We wore you out? Okay, let us go to the non-agenda items. Has anyone signed up to speak on a non-agenda item? Yes? We really made you wait, didn't we? Yeah.
I know you're anxious to get to closed session, so I'll be
It's all right.
really fast.
Yeah.
Chair Wonderman and directors, I just wanted to take a moment and introduce myself. Those in attendance also, Nancy Radcliffe, Port Commissioner for Redwood City. As you know, Loriana has retired, and so I'm going to be joining you on Zoom and looking forward to lots of progress. A couple things I wanted to touch on. We were really excited about the pilot program that we did this summer to the Giants game. I got to meet Director Alba there. And we at the port are keenly aware that most people don't know that we exist. So we have started a lunch and learn to reach out to our officials and members of the community. So you will be getting an invitation to lunch and learn for a water tour.
Oh, that's
We're
awesome.
looking forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
Well, don't go yet. So,
Especially after
so
being-
Seamus, what's the
3.5
situation with MTC and the plan and Redwood City? Because
So
we have a problem, don't we?
We do have a problem,
Yeah.
and fortunately, Gina Pappen on MTC is quite aware of it. And we're also talking with Diana Pappen.
Yeah, so MTC is looking at a fiscally constrained, long-term regional plan that looks at the amount of funding that the region has to spend on capital projects, and they try and fit the projects that people want done into that overall budget. And they originally proposed to leave both major expansion projects for the SFA ferry system, Berkeley and Redwood City, out. We made a really strong case along with our partners in San Mateo County and Redwood City and Berkeley that both projects should be added back in because they're being done with money that can only be spent on ferry projects. And so they are not affecting other projects from making their way in to the regional plan. And that was very convincing for MTC staff who asked the project management team, which is a team of planners from the other operators, and our own Mike Gowerty sits on that team. MTC staff asked them to find a way to get these projects into the plan and hopefully revise their assumptions to make that happen. There's a lot of other scoring besides just overall capacity around the region, the cost effectiveness and duplication of existing transit services and other things that they take into account. We understand that the PMT has met a few more times as early as yesterday was their last meeting, and they are recommending that Berkeley be added back in, but Redwood City not be added back in. And so that's a problem for us, a problem for Nancy, a problem for our stakeholders in San Mateo County. This is, early news. So glad to talk about it here and also to let you know that Lauren and Terrence and the team are on it. And we're working with Christine at the port and the TA in San Mateo County, our elected officials and our MTC commissioners to make the case at the commission level now that this project should be added back in. We won't be the only project seeking to be added into the plan, but I think we have the most compelling reason to be added back in, which is we're not taking any other funding away from these other projects that are already.
Yeah. I spoke with Andy Fremier, and I told him that, this is a project we've been working on forever, and there would be a lot of really hard feelings if this didn't make it into the plan. And I spoke with Gina Pappin and Supervisor Canepa, and as the San Mateo reps on MTC, they really need to speak up.
Yes.
And make their voices heard. And then you need to rally the troops and let people in Redwood City know this is going on, and that because as Shaman said, they view it as a constrained situation, and their staff is determined to try to, kind of keep things in line and controlled. But, what I said to Andy Fremier is that unlike, I shouldn't say we're the only, but we're pretty much the sole agency in the region whose mission is to expand. So other agencies don't have an expansion North Star. They're trying to make their current service work. God bless them. I hope they can, because they're facing a lot of headwinds. But our specific mission is reflected in our own long-term plan. And the transportation community doesn't really see it that way. They don't really see that. And so we have to fight for it, okay, and remind them that the success of our transit network in the Bay Area includes an expanding ferry presence. And Redwood City is a very important destination of that. And so
It is, yes.
Yeah.
Beginning to soak on. Thank you.
Very nice to meet you.
Other folks from the public wish to speak on a non-agenda item?
No one else has signed up.
Anyone who's in listening range wish to speak? Okay, let's close out item number 9, and we're going to recess into closed session. Public employee performance evaluation, conference of labor negotiator pursuant to government code sections 54957B1 and 54957.6. Title Executive Director. And I guess I'm the agency designated representative.
Take a short break.
Yeah, we'll take 5 minutes and then we'll be.
What's that?
Yes.
Yes?
Yeah.
Melanie, are we open? We're good. Okay, so I don't know if we're on video, so this is Jim Wonderman. Okay, so I move we amend, first of all, I just want to say to Seamus, we discussed his employment and his contract and his compensation. And every member of this board gave him extremely glowing comments and support, and we feel very fortunate. We feel like we have the best executive director in mass transit, and we feel like there's a real future here for you. And it's great to be on the board. And I know as a chair, you just make my job a little too easy. So that's okay. But we may have some rougher skids ahead, so we'll be there. So with that, let me, and we can take a motion and others can comment, but I move we amend the employment agreement with our executive director to increase the base salary by 5% to a new annual amount of $338,441. Is there a second for the motion?
I second.
Let the minutes show that Vice Chair Moyer seconded the motion. Is there any discussion?
I would just like to add that I think the leadership of the agency has been phenomenal, and it has been shown by all the accomplishments that we talked about today in open session, as well as in most of the meetings we've had this year. And I just want to commend you, Seamus, and your team for all the incredible work, the extra hours. I know you put in a lot of extra hours, so please say thank you to your family for that, and thank you for all you've done.
Thank you. Others? Comments? Okay, let's call a roll, please. Yes.
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 Congratulations, James.
We need to adjourn the meeting.
This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.